Where are you guys? There it is.
Where
I'm on
are
Chrome.
you?
Where are you? I'm so sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what that was, but
I'm Pavlov to think of or hear certain things when I hear
That
certain
should be your
phrases,
cold
right?
open.
that
Yeah.
should have been. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai. And joining me tonight, I have our czar of source material, John.
You know, every time you count in like the 3, 2, 1, I'm like, let's jam. You know,
if I didn't know that it would get us like copyright struck or whatever, I would do it as like a clip.
Yeah, I know.
One of these days. We also have a special guest joining us tonight. Ian is back.
Hello.
Hi, Ian.
Glad
Where's
to
the
be
cat?
back.
Show us the cat.
I don't know if she's still behind me.
She's still behind
Not
you?
Still behind me. She's gone. No
Oh,
cat.
she left.
Bye, Yuzu.
Bye, Yuzu. But tonight, the three of us have gotten together. For those of you who have been listening to our podcast, you know, the last time Ian was on, we kind of teased this podcast idea. It was actually Ian's idea to do an episode where we do nothing but talk about anime OSTs, scores, and composers. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Can I just mention that it actually wasn't Ian that... so it originally started with Natai and me talking about this prior. But given the geopolitical situation that Natai has found himself in, we've decided it's probably better to have Ian on and do it instead.
Well, and Ian's also super passionate about music too.
That makes me think of design is my passion, and it's
passion.
Like 3D like paint.
Graphic design is my passion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know for a fact, and from not just talking to him, but also listening to things that Natai has said about him, the dude can talk about OPs and EDs forever.
Thank God. We need someone to carry this episode.
I thought we were talking about OST. I guess OPs and EDs do count as OSTs.
They're usually on anime soundtracks when you buy them.
It's just usually not what you think when you're talking about the soundtrack, right?
Yeah, like we're talking specifically
about openings.
Well, we've done episodes in the past where we've talked about OPs and EDs, although it might be time to bring that back because there's more OPs and EDs to talk about. I think we did those episodes back in 2018.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So there's plenty of new OPs that we could really talk about. Ian, you want to be on that?
Sure, let's do
it. Every time he comes on now, it's just become a planning session for our next episode with him on.
I think the biggest difference, though, is usually the OPs and EDs are performed by a band or by a different artist and not necessarily the composer of the soundtrack. And I think that's usually why you separate them, or people will separate them in their mind, where like that's a song by a band and then the actual soundtrack is by the composer.
Well, there's also a lot of OPs and EDs that were crafted specifically for a show, and sometimes they'll even recruit like the voice actors inside of the show to sing the songs.
Monogatari does that constantly.
Yeah,
and I mean, I like songs like that. I think Monogatari has amazing OPs and EDs, and would probably just dominate the list. But
I mean,
no one gets the reference.
By the way, I do want to point out, what was it? 2 days before we started recording this, it has been announced that they are making more Monogatari anime, and I'm super hyped.
Oh god!
Yeah, they saw that there was a new Bunny Senpai season, and they got scared. And
they did not.
They got to make a new season of Monogatari, I guess.
They did not get scared in the least. I do realize now that the theatrical re-release of Kizu Monogatari had to have been a cash grab. Had to have been.
Because it's one part, right? Instead of all being three
parts,
it's
all edited into a single movie.
Yeah,
instead of 3 movies. But yeah, and for those who are wondering when the new Monogatari does come out, yes, Natai and I will be doing spoiler casts on them. There's
just
no
when
question.
I thought it was over. Just when I thought.
Just when you thought it was over. Yeah, they pull me back in. Damn you, Shaft. But anyway, let's talk about it. So I don't know exactly the best way to structure this because we've got lists here of both composers and just straight up soundtracks. So I guess we could just go down the list with some of these composers and talk about some of the stuff that we like that they've done.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I think that
I
works.
feel like everyone and their mother is probably gonna guess who's the first person
Is
we're gonna
yeah,
talk
literally
about.
number one on our list. It's
Friggin' Hiroyuki Sawano.
yeah,
Uh, when I think of anime OST, he's probably the first or second person who comes up into my mind. Yes.
yeah.
Now, why? Why is Hiroyuki Sawano so massively popular? Is it because he's worked on titles like Attack on Titan, on oh my god, what's the one I hated?
I don't know. There's plenty of others I could list. I don't want to speak for you as to which one you hated.
No, Alex, my most hated Guilty Crown. I hated Guilty
Guilty
Crown.
Well,
Crown.
that's the thing about Guilty Crown is the soundtrack is really good.
Oh no,
Yeah,
exactly.
It
I
is.
hated Guilty Crown the anime, but the soundtrack, man, let me tell you, I
yeah.
loved that soundtrack.
Is it the only thing good about the show?
I think that no, I think the show is fine until you hit episode 13. That's when it turns for the worst. Because
Okay.
I will eventually one day go into my whole like, this is why Guilty Crown sucks. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. You all
I'm
have
just
bad
saying we should
taste.
just do a spoiler cast at this point with your
Are there
hatred.
people that like Guilty Crown?
I
Like, are there
know of
people arguing with you
some
that they're
people. Yes, I do know some people who liked Guilty Crown. Now, granted, I remember this guy that told me he liked Guilty Crown is like Guilty Crown was one of his first anime. Like
okay?
he's a newer anime watcher, so I'm like, okay, I can forgive the fact that you have no taste at all right now. So you might think this is good structure.
Yeah, if someone's watched like 5 anime and they say their favorite anime is like My Hero Academia, like I can forgive that. I can forgive that.
But also another guy was like, no, I just love Inori's design. I think she's super cute. I'm like, what? What? There's way better waifus out there.
But that's also a design. It's not the quality of the show.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
There are plenty of shows where I'm like, I love that character design, and I don't like the show.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fair enough.
But
But yeah, here I think Hiroyuki Sawano as a composer kind of speaks for himself. Like like you listed some of them, like Attack on Titan, 86, Awari no Seraph, Guilty Crown, Kill la Kill, Seven Deadly Sins, Premiere, Solo Leveling, which is his most recent thing that's airing right now.
can I
Like,
just mention, have either of you watched Solo Leveling?
no, I
The
have not
anime.
watched anything from the
Okay.
we
winter
literally
season
told
yet.
you that before.
Oh my god, you guys are. I thought you guys were anime content, anime-tubers. You're
No,
supposed to be
no.
content.
I always wait until a new season is like a month old. That way I can
You
watch
know
like
it's
the first
good.
3 episodes of everything that's aired.
Okay, instead of painfully watching episodes 1 to 3 every week, like
Yeah, yeah.
me.
So that way I know, like by the end of the first month, usually everything that's airing has at least its first 3 episodes out. So I watch like I'll pick like a dozen of them, and I'll watch all their first 3 episodes all in the same week. And
Mhm.
I use the 3 episode rule. If something doesn't grab my attention by episode 3, or at least by the end of episode 3, I'm probably gonna drop it anyway. And so that
Okay.
usually leaves me about like half a dozen, maybe 8 anime to watch.
Well, I just wanted to mention that with Solo Leveling, the opening song is very K-pop inspired, and I'm
Mhm.
like,
Well,
I
it is
like,
K-pop.
yeah, because it is a K-pop
It's
band.
a K-pop band, yeah.
So I like that they went that direction, just because, like, okay, Solo Leveling is Korean, right? And I think
Mm.
it's cool that they made a nod to that. I also think it's cool that they didn't try to translate the Korean names into Japanese and pronounce them Japanese. They try to pronounce the Korean names, which is another thing I appreciate. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird trying to listen to Japanese people pronounce Korean names because they can't pronounce them.
Is it as bad as listening to them in, like say English names?
I'd say it's not as bad, no, because they
Okay.
have some similar. It's just the inflection of Korean is completely different from Japanese,
Yeah, it is.
but
What
Solo
so
Leveling's pretty good.
but yeah, from what I hear, it's really really good. I will check it out. I plan to check it out. What so I mean, obviously Hiroki Sawano has a shit ton of bangers out there. Like of all of the stuff that he's worked on, what is y'all's favorite like score that he's done?
I mean, I love the Premiere soundtrack and
Premiere's
Kill la
really good,
Kill,
yeah.
but in terms of like the entire soundtrack, it's
Mm.
Attack on Titan. Because Kill la Kill is specifically as a couple of songs. I just call it "Don't Lose Your Way" because that's the
Way.
Yeah,
song everybody.
right.
It's I think it's like "Until My Body Is Dry," and there's a couple of
Yeah.
other really all the character songs, all of like the character motif songs in Kill la Kill's soundtrack are unbelievable. And then Premiere has, the song whose name is now escaping me. It's Inferno.
Inferno.
Inferno, which is unbelievable.
Trails
That's
of
like,
fire
yeah.
you always
But
knew.
Attack on Titan is the only one where I know like the entire soundtrack,
Hmm.
whether it's the large bombastic ones or it's barricades or it's like the more downbeat songs. Like I've listened to that entire soundtrack multiple times.
Hmm.
So that to me, that's my favorite Sawano, like easily.
The crazy thing is, I mean, I'm no giant fan of Attack on Titan, but musically, I love Attack on Titan's like music. But I find it amazing that Sawano was able to craft individual character themes for such a large range of characters in that show. Like every character has their own unique theme. Whether you're talking about the main characters like Eren or Mikasa, or some of the characters that only show up for like half a season, they all have their own themes.
So I was recently watching a YouTube video where someone replaced it's Erwin's speech where it's a Genshin meme video where like the Hilichurls are pretending that like, it's Erwin giving the speech about like, so you're saying we should just die? He's like, yes, throw away your lives for the people who've already thrown away their lives. And I'm like, why is this speech so epic, dude? You know, in some regard, I didn't like the ending of Attack on Titan, sure, but that speech was not as good in the manga as it was in the freaking anime. Like that makes me want to go sacrifice myself and go fight in an impossible fight. Oh God.
That's the thing about like manga adaptations too. Like when you have those big moments, like the big speech that Erwin gives, like it's so some of them are so carried by the music. And I feel
Yeah.
like the music in that scene really carries that speech a lot.
Yeah, because he's like, it starts swelling when it gets to the hype moments, and then the sound design itself of like intensifying his voice and like making that rushing sound because it's like it's impact, impact. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, dedicate your hearts.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a reason I think why. I mean, I guess the animation in the the animation in the whole series is good. So like, it's just like a textbook example of enhancing the source material with how
Mm,
good his soundtrack is and how much it fits the actual story.
Yeah.
right.
And it's interesting
Which
because it's a Sawano. So all of his my only it's not a complaint, but you can always tell when he's doing the soundtrack of a show because it
Yeah,
sounds
he
like
has the
him.
Sawano drop.
Yeah. And I feel like that's how you know you've made it as a composer. When you have like an actual musical tool that is named after you, that's how you know you've made it as a composer.
But Attack on Titan is the only one where a lot of it feels so distinct to the show instead of his specific style of
Mm.
music. And I think that's why I love it so much. And even like Promare, which I love, is very much there's songs on that soundtrack that are like, oh, this is a Sawano song. Like, yep, this is exactly how he creates music. Whereas Attack on Titan, it feels not wholly different, but like if you told me like, oh, this was somebody else, I'd be like, "Oh, okay." Like the most of the final season is like half him and half Kota Yamamoto. Like the big basically like theme of the final at least the final couple of the specials is like Ashes on Fire. I believe that's actually season 4 is like I'm not going to hum it, but if you heard it, you would know the song because it's played all the time in the final season. And that was actually Yamamoto, that was not Sawano, but it fits so well into the style he's specifically created for the show's sort of everything, the whole soundtrack, that someone that he does so Yamamoto does work closely with Sawano, so they're it's basically like his apprentice or along those lines.
His
So
protege,
it
yeah.
made sense.
Yeah.
But it was just like that's how distinct that soundtrack is that someone else could pop in and still capture it so well instead of it being like, oh, this is Sawano's type of music.
Yeah. I think that is probably indicative of it lasting as long as it had. Like the Attack on Titan lasted 10 years. I feel like, for it going on that long, you have a chance to actually create a specific sound for a show that lasts that long. If you're talking about a seasonal thing, it's here one season, gone the next. Like you make a sound, it's like it's no one's really going to remember it. But if it sticks around for 10 years, you got a chance to make something that sounds very distinct for that particular show.
I'd
All
say my
right.
favorite Sawano soundtrack though would probably be Guilty Crown. I downloaded it. It's one of the I rarely download anime OSTs and listen to them. And that is one that I did. It's actually one of the first that I did. So I have to give credit where credit's due. It forced me to be like, who is this composer? And that was also my that's kind of cheating because that was my foray into Sawano's music. So it's like you don't forget your first.
That's
Did
fair
anyone
enough, though. I
watch
mean,
All the Noah Zero?
I did.
oh,
How's that soundtrack?
it's
I can't say because I have entirely blocked the anime out of my mind.
we all have. Don't
I'm not
worry.
kidding. I know what happens in the show. I don't remember what anyone looks like or any of their names, but I know the basic like all right, I remember everything that happened in season 1, like the main story beats, and I just blocked everything else out.
I remember everything that happened in the first 2 episodes because those are the 2 episodes that Kenner Ibuchi wrote.
Yeah, the first 2 kind of passable episodes. I don't remember anything else other than like the stupid storyline of like, oh, the Mara's thing and the princess thing, and I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Because that soundtrack has, I think it was the ED. That soundtrack has the first song I ever went like, oh, was I know who this guy like I know because I think it was the ED, and so you actually know who the artist is unless you're looking up who did the OST. That was the first song I remember being like, oh, like this guy, and then being like, oh, he did Attack on Titan and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And if I'm sorry, I pulled up the soundtrack just to look at it, and it's the most Sawano. He just doesn't. He likes naming his songs like random strings of letters and stuff. Or like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's one that's like 20140910 is a song on the soundtrack. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I mean,
sounds good.
have you seen the track listing for Premiere?
Yeah,
That's all over the
it's
place.
just he just loves doing stuff like that.
I think he's just a chuny at heart.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he makes such good music. I have to say, I think Kill la Kill may have been the first anime I watched where I listened to the music and I'm like, who did this music? And it's like that's how I kind of discovered Sawano. I won't say that Kill la Kill is my favorite. Begrudgingly, as much as it pains me to say it, Attack on Titan might be my favorite, even though
It's a good soundtrack.
I very famously hate Attack on Titan.
But the soundtrack though, bro.
But the soundtrack is this. I have said it before. Like technically, Attack on Titan is very well made. It's very well made.
Technically.
Writing wise, not so much. But yeah, I mean, somewhat. And like I said, if you got a piece of like musical tool named after you, you've made it as a composer. The Sawano drop is real, and it's awesome every time I hear it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another composer who is probably just as well known and legendary as Hiroyuki Sawano. Joe Hisaishi is a composer who has worked on many Studio Ghibli films, not all, but many. I think he's worked on all of them that Hayao Miyazaki has directed, if I'm not mistaken.
I would have to look that up. I honestly don't remember, or
I know he's done
remember
all of the I know he's done all the soundtracks for every Hayao Miyazaki directed movie since My Neighbor Totoro. I know that for a fact.
I'd have to look it up. I actually don't know, but
yeah,
Joe.
Nausicaa, Totoro, you got Kiki's Delivery Service, Mononoke, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, and most recently The Boy and the Heron, which is a phenomenal soundtrack. We talked about it in our movie review, like how much we all really enjoyed that soundtrack.
Now, I feel like Joe Hisaishi is probably more popular than Hiroyuki Sawano, mainly because Ghibli films are more than anime, they're Ghibli films.
Yeah.
I think that they have a broader appeal. But then I feel like that statement probably was true like 10 years ago, but nowadays it's like anime is so mainstream. Like, is Joe Hisaishi any more popular than before? It's like, nah.
I don't know because it feels like with it being more mainstream, I don't know how many of those people are even looking into who does the soundtracks of their favorite shows.
Yeah, the
Right.
casual anime fan is probably not caring who does this. I mean, they might notice, wow, the music in that fight scene was awesome, but they might not go and look it up.
Like it probably is still him just because like people will look up the soundtrack of a movie, of like a Ghibli movie, like, oh, who did the soundtrack for this movie? Right. But they're not necessarily going to be watching the new episode of Jujutsu Kaisen and be like, oh wow, I love that song. Who's composing the soundtrack this season? At least from people that were, if we're talking about like more mainstream casual fans.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Joe, I think, is just as legendary. The crazy thing to me is, up until recently, his soundtracks had never been nominated for any award outside of Japan.
Well, I mean, that's not because the soundtracks aren't good. That's for other reasons.
It's for other not enough money being thrown at the award committees.
Yeah. Did we? I don't remember if we talked about that in The Boy and the Heron, or if that was part of our pre-roll where me and you talked about that.
We talked about it at the time. The Golden Globes hadn't aired yet. The Boy and the Heron did win Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature. So that was. I don't know if he won the soundtrack, because I know it was nominated. I don't know who won Best Soundtrack.
I don't want to derail this conversation any more than we've already derailed it, but I just think it's really funny that what's probably one of my least favorite Miyazaki movies that I've seen. I haven't seen all of his movies, but one of my least favorite is the one that's going to win all the awards, because it's, now people actually pay attention to animation and they'll actually want to give people awards and for it and stuff. When, there's so many other ones that are incredible. That, I mean, Spirited Away won.
Spirited Away is the only anime that's won Best
that's
Animated Feature at the Oscars.
I just think it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot to say in our review of The Boy and the Heron. Like, it's definitely a Miyazaki movie, but is it a Ghibli movie?
Yeah,
the soundtrack was amazing, though.
I can't hate The Boy and the Heron. I like I said, I in the movie review, I liked the story. The execution was a little bit iffy, but I did like the main story beats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But out of Joe Hisaishi's works, I think I said this in our pre-roll, but Howl's Moving Castle, I think, is the most popular soundtrack of them all. Specifically Merry-Go-Round of Life. That's just, everyone knows that one. Even if you don't know the song name, you've heard this freaking song. Everyone uses it. In fact, I'm going to insert the song right here, right now. You've heard this before.
Okay, editor, good job.
But quick update, because I looked up because I was curious. Oppenheimer won that original score.
Okay.
Golden Globe. So he did not.
Oppenheimer was a fucking phenomenal movie.
Oppenheimer was a good movie. So, yeah, I'm not too disappointed with that. But I personally, my personal favorite Ghibli film has always been Princess Mononoke. Even though
the correct opinion.
The correct opinion. And that's also my favorite soundtrack, just because, again, I think it works really well with the movie. Everything about it fits, and I like the music. Now, I do think that they're all really good. All right. They all have standout songs in each soundtrack, but how I'm scoring mine is that how well does the soundtrack fit the entire movie as a motif?
Yeah.
He just does fantasy perfectly. He's probably, to me, in terms of at least in animation, because I don't know a lot of live action composers off the top of my head, is the best composer for this type of movie, this type of anime, like the fantasy. He just captures it. There's something about the music that it just perfectly captures the like vibe of every different Ghibli movie, and they're all slightly different. Like the Howl's one isn't the Mononoke one, which isn't the Spirited Away one, but they all fit the movie themselves so perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, and Joe is not afraid to mix it up every now and then. Like, if you listen to the soundtrack to Nausicaa, like, I think it's the only I think it's the only soundtrack he's ever done, at least for Ghibli, where he leans heavily into synthesizers. And I think that kind of fits perfectly with the theme of the movie being living in like harmony with nature.
In this like fantasy apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
With this futuristic but also kind of weird old world.
Yeah. And I think the use of synthesizers in the Nausicaa soundtrack fits perfectly with the story being told.
Yeah.
Also, couldn't have been cheap to get those synthesizers back in the early 80s.
Sounds like a video essay idea if you want to branch out on the channel. Make
I
an
feel
hour
like
and a half long video about the synthesizers and Nausicaa's
Nausicaa, the
soundtrack.
Valley of the Wind. I feel like if you ask me what my favorite Hisaishi soundtrack is, I probably would say it's really close for me between Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. It's really, really close. I love both of those movies. I love both those soundtracks, but I also have to give a shout out to Nausicaa because it was my very first anime. So
that's fair.
I just always have issues with the Ghibli soundtracks where I cannot remember, like, not, I don't remember the names. I don't, it's like, maybe it's because I don't listen to them outside of the movies, but they're more like the whole movie is its soundtrack, and I don't remember track names. I can't like pick out like, oh, this was the song I loved the most from that film. It's always just like, no, I love that film's music.
Right.
maybe that's just because every film's music is so unique. Like it has that good fantasy feel to it, but each one is very unique. Like if you just played a random Joe Hisaishi, I always want to call him Hisaishi piece of music, like I might not be able to tell you what the name of that piece of music is, but I could probably tell you with a
What
pretty
movie?
good amount of certainty what movie it's from,
Right.
just based on how it sounds. That's kind of why I like his work. Like it's so everything is so distinct and unique, and it fits the vibe that Miyazaki is trying to tell with the story in that movie. Anyway, next one we have our boy Evan Call. We got to talk about Evan Call because my dude can make some damn good music.
Yeah. I personally didn't know who Evan Call was until Freerun. Like I knew his music, but I didn't like bother looking up because I liked Violet Evergarden's music. I didn't know he
Yeah.
did the music for that. And I remember when Freerun was coming out, that's when pretty sure it was Natai. He was like, "Oh, it's the guy who does the music for Violet Evergarden. That's the guy doing the music for Freerun." And I was like, "Oh, I like the music of Violet Evergarden, so I'll give this a chance." But other than those two, I didn't know that like you wrote down Big Order here. I didn't know he did the music for that.
I didn't know
But
until I
then
went and looked
again,
up his discography, and I was shocked.
Big Order is kind of I hated the anime, so
I did too.
How have we talked about Big Order and Guilty Crown so far? And we're talking about our favorite anime soundtracks. We've talked about Guilty Crown and Big Order.
Two phenomenally bad anime.
but the soundtracks though.
But the soundtracks,
God.
I don't really remember Big. I just put it on there because I was shocked that he worked on something so bad.
It
You gotta get
happens.
job. You gotta get paid.
That's true. I don't really remember. I don't even. I never even finished Big Order. It was so bad. I got like to the midway point, and I'm like, "Fuck this! I'm out." I
From
don't
what I
really remember
remember
the
about
soundtrack at all.
like people talking about him, I think it was Evergarden was like the breakout.
Yeah.
Like,
That
oh,
that's where I got to like really like know who he was and recognize, oh, that's the kind of music he's making, and it's really good music. I also didn't know he was working on stuff as far back as 2014 because he also worked on the soundtrack for When Supernatural Battles Became Commonplace, which also has a good soundtrack. It's kind of a mid show, but it's a good soundtrack.
in our effort to talk about every single Trigger show
Yes.
Yeah,
in
I
this
know. I was about to say.
podcast,
I was
we're
like,
going to mention
yeah,
every
There's a
single
fair
Trigger
number of
property.
Trigger anime on this list.
well, a lot of Trigger shows they're really good. I feel like when supernatural battles become commonplace, there is one specific scene that everyone remembers and talks
Of
about
course.
like ad nauseum. I can literally Google and
It's
find 10 video essays about it right now.
Which
J.R.
is funny
Hayami.
because it's one of the
Yeah.
few scenes in that show without any music in it.
It is. There's no music whatsoever. That is actually pretty funny.
There's sound effects, but there's no music. But no, like Violet Evergarden soundtrack though is just absolutely top notch. Whether you're talking about the show or the OVA or the movie, like it's all absolutely beautiful. I love the fact that he uses a typewriter as an actual musical instrument in that
Yeah.
soundtrack. Very appropriate for the show itself, and especially the main character of Violet. and like all the character themes in there, especially with the show, because it's almost like an episodic kind of thing where Violet gets a job and she has to go meet someone, and you learn the sad backstory, and there's tears. They'll tell you there'll be no tears, but there's going to be some tears. Um,
Who says there's no tears in Violet Evergarden?
oh, there were lots of tears for me, especially with episode 10. Um, like every like character that Violet meets has like their own little theme, especially when they're telling their story about, you know, when Violet's writing the letter. It's beautiful, and I think a lot of the reason I probably cried was because of how good the music was.
So this is not like, I want to say this not in a way where I'm like, I don't think he's a good composer, because he is, because he's proven that he's a good composer. I do think that more people know who Evan Call is specifically because he is named Evan Call.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a very, because it's so stand out when you get to like the music section. It's like Evan Call. You're like, that's an English name.
He
That's
is
not
American. I wanted to double check.
Yeah,
He
he
is
is.
American. So like I and this isn't like a slight against him. It's just looking at the discography or like the list of shows. It's a lot of shows that like aren't popular or aren't well known, and then like Violet Evergarden and Freerun. And so in the shows that have been in front of people, he's clearly proven that he makes wonderful music.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that I feel like everyone has known who he is for a while, more so because you're watching the credits of a show and you see
the
in
English, yeah, because it's so stand
Yeah.
out.
English characters Evan Call.
Now I
Yeah,
wonder if that's
versus
why
in a
Trigger
sea of
like originally
kanji,
picked him.
English letters stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I knew who he was, at least before. I don't know if it was before Violet Evergarden, but I never watched Violet Evergarden, and I knew who he was before Freerun.
Mm.
And I just think that was why. It was because like, oh, well, you know, there's like two Western composers who do anime music, and that so you have to know both of them because it's just like people talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, you see their name when they come up in the credits, and it's like, oh, it's the only English, name in
Yeah,
here.
I can recognize that.
I can read those letters. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, he is a good composer. I mean, despite the fact that people probably know him because of that, how his name stands out in credits, I think his music does speak for itself.
I'm gonna have
well,
to
I
go
think
back
that
and listen to
he
Big Order's
makes
soundtrack.
Yeah, I gotta listen to
yeah.
Big Order's
Yeah, see
music.
if it's
Maybe the
anything
music
like
was actually good. I don't know. I
it's
don't
like some heat
remember.
in there.
I don't know. Sengoku Yoko is out this season and he's working on the soundtrack for that. And I don't think that the soundtrack is that amazing, but it's
Mm.
not that amazing of a show. So I'm like, well, are you a good composer because you make music that fits the show? It's like, well, Free Run is freaking amazing. I love every song in there. I love how it's paced and themed and everything. Because it makes sense, it's supposed to be like a movie, and it's the hero's journey, but at the end, like what
Since,
happens after that, the hero's journey.
since we're talking about Freeman, not to derail the conversation, but uh, isn't it funny that this is the first anime that's surpassed Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood on Mal that no one has rushed to downvote?
Well, you can't deny that it's good.
I know.
I think that whole thing is overblown. I don't think there's some sort of secret society of people downvoting
No,
stuff when it pops up
there
there.
was.
Oh,
They
there have been
absolutely,
organized like attempts to do that.
yeah. It's like they did that with Gintama, where it's like Gintama just like raked it in every season when it was
That
airing.
that's my tinfoil hat conspiracy. Actually, it's not the Full Metal fans that downvote the shows. It's the Gintama fans, so they can
Oh,
have
that's actually
so they can
brilliant.
have 4 seasons in the top 10. That's what's going on here.
I don't know if you think like I don't know why you think that's a tinfoil hat conspiracy because that's true. It is true. I'm
Are you
letting you
saying
know,
that
Ian. It's true.
are you saying that Gintama fans are indeed that autistic?
I think that they're unhinged and they have a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah, currently 4 of the top 10 on Mal are Gintama seasons.
And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I love Gintama, but
And then
like
14 and 15 are Gintama seasons.
dude, some people just have so much time on their hands to be doing stuff like that. I'm like, all right, man, whatever makes you happy, I guess.
I have to say though, the fact that Freerun has stayed on top kind of proves how good it is, because even like these staunch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood lovers are like, yeah, it's pretty good.
But there just aren't a lot of. I mean, there's like 2,000 1 out of 10s, which is probably all people trying to get it to drop. But even then, there doesn't seem to be a concerted effort to like get it out of the top spot. I do
At
think
least
it'll
not yet.
drop a bit. It'll drop. I just think it'll drop eventually, but
I guess we'll have to see how that
I
ends.
don't think
But
it's better than Full Metal Alchemist. That's my opinion on the subject.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a brave
okay, all
opinion to
right.
be putting out there right now. It's not over yet. Your opinion could change,
that is true. It would be fairly difficult, but
I
but
think
not
it's hard to
impossible.
compare them though, because Free Run is a completely different type of story than Full Metal Alchemist.
yeah.
Which
One
is
is
kind of why it's silly to put them in a list like that. They're
yeah.
very
Oh,
different
now
shows.
we're arguing an entirely different
Yeah, I know. Now
societal
we're on a
problem.
different anime topic
Yeah, I
about
know.
why
We should save that for another episode.
But since we were
Should we
talking
move on
about
from
Evan
Evan?
Cole, yeah, do you want to just go into Kevin Penkin next then?
Yeah, since we're talking about Western composers, let's talk about Kevin Pinkin.
the other Western name that everyone will recognize.
Made in Abyss is where I really like recognized who he was. And I
Yeah,
think
he did
because the
phenomenal work
OST
in
in that is just
Made in
so
Abyss.
top tier.
It's just the
Now,
same deal, right? It was like the one show that blew up. To be fair, this was only his third soundtrack that he had worked on.
so I
But
remember Kevin talking about how like he's been doing music his entire life. He's played at the Sydney Opera House like as a young guy. He has a lot of connections in the music sphere, and
Is he
he
a
just got
baby?
this
Please don't tell me
opportunity.
he's a Nepo baby.
Who?
Kevin Pinkin a Nepo baby? Is he related to someone that's already like famous in the music industry, and that's how he got his gigs?
I don't think he's a nepo baby. I do know that he is connected because
Mm.
that's how you get to play at the Sydney Opera Theater when you're really young. But for how he became an anime composer, he talked about how he just like, yeah, no, I just applied. Like I just, hey, can I do music for you? Here's some samples, and he got the jobs.
That's very reminiscent of how Pro CD talked about becoming a voice actor. He just showed up and said, "Can I voice act?"
Well, he's got a really deep voice. He's a good voice for voice acting, but
Dude,
yeah.
he does the voice of Brow 1589 in the English dub of Pluto, and he knocks it out of the fucking park.
mhm.
So with Kevin, I know that he kind of just likes making music, and he's very go with the flow. Like, yeah, I'll just do it. Like it's the same thing for his naming schemes. Like he doesn't. There's no sense in how he names things. He just names them however he feels like it. So very similar to Hiroyuki Sawano, where it's like we don't understand why you name things like this. Maybe it's just a composer thing, I guess.
It makes sense in the moment.
They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's just call this Alpha Beta Zeta Cuck or something. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? But yeah,
But
Made in Abyss was definitely his breakout one that everyone, because Made in Abyss's soundtrack is amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also the only thing he'd really done before was Norn 9, and I wanted to mention that because I wanted to continue our trend of bringing up the worst shows in existence during this podcast.
I was trying actively to avoid Nor 9 because I was like, I hated that.
But apparently
Uh,
that doing that, so he like applied with that studio and they had him do the music for that show, and then that's the same studio that does Made in Abyss, and so they
Oh,
kind of just like, well, here's this other show. You can work.
bro,
We'll have you
he's
work on this too.
Kevin was playing 5D chess, man.
yeah, right. It's like I'm gonna work on this really shitty show. I'll do a good job, but I'm gonna work on this really shitty show, and then maybe they'll put me on something better.
So he's also working on Apothecary Diaries right now, and I've
Mm.
mentioned this before, but Chinoda was like, "Hey, you should watch Apothecary Diaries," and I'm like, "No, fuck you, you have shit taste." And then I pick it up, and I'm like watching the first episode. It's like music composer Kevin Penkin. I'm like, I pause. I'm like, bro, why didn't you fucking say Kevin Penkin did the music? Then I would have watched it right away. Because
Shinoda's the kind of guy, he always leads with the most like meaningless information first, and then like the important stuff he just fails to mention. Like you were talking with him about a show, like what was it, a couple days ago, and he lists all this irrelevant information, and then he's like, "But Sugita does." It's like, bro, why didn't you lead with that?
yeah, he was talking to me about Sasaki and Peeps, and it's like this is an isekai. I'm like, okay, I'll watch isekai. I'll watch it eventually. But he's like, yeah, it's just about a bird, this and that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, eventually, he's like, oh yeah, also the first episode's like 45 minutes long. I'm like, oh god, I don't want to watch an episode that's 45 minutes long. And then I start watching it eventually because I've caught up on everything else, and I'm like, I listen to the voice actor. I'm like, that's motherfucking Sugita. I'm gonna watch it. He's the main character in an isekai. I'll fucking watch this.
This is so funny because I have some friends. One of them is like a huge Gintama fan, and she's like, oh yes, Sugita. But then one of the other people hasn't watched Gintama, and to them, Sugita is now become
Rudy's inner monologue.
Rudy's inner
Yeah,
monologue
yeah,
voice, and
yeah.
she's so mad that that's how he's like being slandered instead of being
I
like
know.
Hitoki, he's
Wow.
Rudy.
Well, he has
I-
other roles too. Like he's pretty. He was the He's, oh my god, what's his name? Kyon. He's Kyon from Haruhi.
oh
If anyone's old enough to remember Haruhi, I know we're old enough,
yeah,
Alex, to
me
remember
and you are
Haruhi. But
definitely old enough.
yeah, I
Uh,
remember him as Kyon. I also remember him as oh my god, Danshikokusei no Nichijo. What is it? What was his name in the show? Orinawa Jack.
oh yes, I didn't know a jack.
Friggin', I love Sugita's
We
voice so
talked about
much.
this recently, how it's just funny how for us at least, I don't know how if it's that way for other people, but for us we sort of associate certain voice actors with roles. Like for us, Kirito is Kirito. That voice actor, it's always Kirito. We
Yeah,
always
it's
just
not
call him
Yeah,
Yuki
Kirito.
Kaji. It's Kirito.
Matsuoka always does the Kirito. Well, Matsuoka's also in so many shows, and he does the Kirito voice for so many characters
Mm.
in all of those shows that it's very funny. He does have incredible range though, because he
Yeah,
is
oh,
also
100.
Inosuke and Demon Slayer and
And he's
multiple other
Pito
characters.
Jusa Romani Kanti. Yes.
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 Um, but then we got like Dio is always Dio.
Yeah, Dio's always Dio.
Yeah.
But the thing about Sugita's voice is like it's so unique that I notice him in everything that he's in. Even when Sugita, when you do porn, I know that's you, man. I know it's you. I didn't understand why. I'm just like looking at some hentai that came out. And I'm like, is that Sugita I hear?
I
But
find
an interesting note on the Apothecary Diaries OST, not to like
not to derail
drag
this.
us back into the actual conversation we're having, but Penkin is working on it with I
Two
believe
other
a
people.
couple of composers. One of them
Yeah.
is Satoru Kosaki, who has
Yeah.
done a lot of the Monogatari music,
Like
as
80%
well
of the
as
Monogatari OSTs he did.
Haruhi, which I wouldn't have mentioned, but because we were talking about it, I thought it was interesting to
That is
connect that.
interesting how it's all interlinked. Wow.
It's almost like there's like just a group of people in Japan that just work on making soundtracks for anime.
And now, speaking again, going with the trend of animes I absolutely detest, but the soundtrack's pretty okay. Rising of the Shield Hero.
Yeah.
I don't like Rising of the Shield Hero whatsoever. However, the soundtrack's okay.
It's the first show I ever dropped. I used to not drop anime ever.
Uh-huh.
So technically it's listed as on hold on my mal, but I'm not gonna lie to myself. I
You'll
should
just lie to
probably
everybody else who looks at your
well,
list.
if you want to look at my mal. But I just stopped watching it halfway through, and I don't really have any desire to go back.
Don't worry, no one else does either.
Perfectly honest.
No. Season 1, people liked. It's halfway through. It's season 2, halfway through season 2, where
Yeah.
people are just like,
The
"Oh, it's
turtle.
trash now." Yeah.
The turtle in season 2 was the moment.
I feel almost like they're just gonna keep making new seasons of Shield Hero as tax write-offs.
Man, I don't know.
I wonder how popular it is in terms of driving people to buy the novels. That would be the only real reason I
must
could
be
see them
popular
doing
enough
it.
to warrant more seasons.
Oh no, the merch that sells for Raftalia and what's her name? Firo? Whatever the
Philo, but it's probably
Philo?
pronounced different. Philo? I think it's Philo.
Philo, whatever her name is. Yeah, that type of merch sells like fucking hotcakes, bro.
Perfect.
Like, everybody loves Raftalia. Like, oh yeah, I'm sure you weird degenerates would love to have a raccoon slave girl that turns from a 9-year-old to a 16-year-old, so now you can have sex with her.
Yeah, it's funny.
Are we supposed to be talking about anime OSTs?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If I bring up Shield Hero, I have to start griping about everything about I hate about it. But
Speaking of waifus, though, Kevin Pinkin is going to be doing the music for the new Spice and Wolf that's coming out next season.
oh yeah, because I remember on this list it was like I think you only I'm the one who added Kevin Penkin. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
the 3 off the top of my head were Made in Abyss, Rising of the Shield Hero, and Apothecary Diaries. I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what else he did.
Tower of God.
Yeah, Tower of
I
God.
didn't know he did Tower of God, actually. I didn't like Tower of God's anime, but it's because I don't like Tower of God. Even though I don't like the manhwa. So
Seems like an inherent problem with you watching the show if you don't like the source material.
Yeah.
I just listen, it takes so long for it to actually get really good and interesting.
Like every manhwa ever.
Like every other manhwa. Like the first 100 chapters is the prequel, and that's what the first 2 seasons of Tower of God is going to be, the prequel.
I just hope the new Spice Wolf is really good.
I think it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be a full adaptation, so we'll get a
and
full
Kevin
story.
Bacon doing the music.
Yeah. He's pretty good with fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if it becomes as popular as it was when the original anime aired.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know.
The original anime was pretty popular.
I don't know how popular the original anime was in comparison to like everything else, because like the old anime fans have here's a list of the top goated anime of all time, right? We've got
Top is Death Note, of course.
Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, and all these other shows that's like at the time they were the most popular and they're the ones you probably remember the most, because everything else they fell to the wayside. But I don't truly think that Death Note is probably one of the best anime in the earlier seasons, because it was okay. Have you rewatched Death Note lately? Anyone?
I watched it, rewatched it for the first time probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Now, I don't know if it's because I'm gotten older and I've had more opportunities to watch a lot more anime, but the ending just really irks me. I'm just like, man, this really did end pretty terrible, didn't it?
The ending
I kind of
is
hated it.
But the first like 25 episodes of it are like incredible, though.
By the way, speaking of anime with great soundtracks.
Oh yeah,
Death
speaking
Note.
of oh man, the band that does the opening, oh my god, what's their name?
I don't know, but in the second OP, I swear to God, they're just screaming porn.
Why? They might be.
They might be. I don't know.
Why can I not? I listen to this band literally all the time. Why? Oh, Maximum the Hormone. I don't know why I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. It's Maximum the Hormone.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's the second opening. They also did the second ED the third ED for Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, that's my favorite ED from. Did we do the ranking episode with that?
We have not done a ranking episode of Chainsaw Man EDs. We really should.
And are either of you guys caught up on the manga of Chainsaw Man really quick?
No.
Like you talking about part 2?
Yeah,
I am not.
No.
Okay.
No,
well, there's a reference. There's a reference to one of their songs in the manga in part of the
that's
chapter.
Cool.
In part.
That's actually really cool. Death Note. The soundtrack to Death Note is really, really fucking good.
I'm
like
having
the fact
such a hard time remembering that band's name, and I'm like, I listened to. I know they did a song called "Dirty." That was part of a.
Jamie, look that up.
Jamie is at work right now.
Oh,
she can't do anything.
Which is this? What band is this?
The one who did the first opening for Death Note.
Death Note.
First Death Note OP? Oh, wait, well.
I know this band.
It's gonna
Nightmare.
Really big.
It's Nightmare. See?
See, literally as I was typing it up, it's
literally
Nightmare.
It's Nightmare. There we go. Oh, that was killing me. I'm like, I listen to Dirty all the time, and also the I don't remember what the first opening for Death Note was called. I just remember how it goes.
Isn't it called?
It's like The World or something.
The World, I think.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't.
The World, though. No, I also like in that soundtrack how L's theme is literally just a ripoff of the Exorcist theme.
Yeah. I love that theme though.
I mean, it works so well in the anime. Like the anime is
like one of the lasting sound effects. Like just one of the lasting sound effects is like whenever I watch people who do like anime skit stuff, it's like when they do the serious like think like that something serious is happening. They're doing a mega brain move. It's like you play L's theme. The young kids these days might not know it's called L's theme and where it comes from, but they know the music.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of going back to the old days, we were talking about how like Spice and Wolf, how popular it was, right?
Right.
Got to remember at the time, first of all, the original Spice Wolf also has a really great soundtrack. I forget who does it, but it also has a really good soundtrack. At the time it came out, it was competing with some stuff that was like really popular and kind of has lasted in the zeitgeist a little bit. Like it came out around the same time as the first season of K-On! Haruhi was coming out around the same time.
There was just less like again, we're gonna go off on a tangent, but there was just like less anime and less
Which is
anime
probably why we
people
remember it,
were
because we had a
able
chance to watch
yes.
it all.
There was less stuff people were able to watch and there was less of it in general. And it wasn't the community was smaller, so it was a lot more of a niche thing of like watching it. There's a couple things I have think piece points in my brain about this where there was less of it. The community was smaller, so everybody kind of watched the new hot thing and talked about it together. And source material was basically impossible to get translated. And
Right.
so there was
Unless it was the big
nobody.
three.
Yes, and so there was no one like, "Oh, I already read all of Spice and Wolf. You guys are gonna love it." Like, because nowadays it feels like a show comes out and half of the fan base is for people that have already read it, and it
Yeah.
just it splinters the
Gone.
anime.
Yeah, it's
It
me.
splinters the anime because then you can't really talk to those people about it because they already know what's gonna happen. So you can talk to them about it, but it's not the same. And then the first season ends, and anybody that cares anything about that series is just gonna go read it and catch up.
Yeah.
And so then it just like, with the exception of gigantic shonen action series, which can survive with two distinct fan bases, it just like becomes the fan base just talks about the source material and that's about it. And it kind of like weirdly affects the anime the anime existence.
Well, because
Which
like so all right. On I used to use Reddit. I don't use Reddit anymore.
I'm
Eh,
recovering and I'm recovering
where
addict.
is your fedora, John?
tips my fedora, milady. But I used to be part of the Overlord subreddit. And basically, Overlord subreddit was dead because the only people who would talk in it are people who read the light novel until the anime seasons came out. Then all people would flock to it. And it's a seasonal thing. Like, because no one, if the majority of your viewers are going to be watching the anime and more of your hardcore fans are going to be the ones who read it, then it's like, unless there's active media about this, then no one's really going to be talking about it. And that's the hard thing. So if you're not watching a popular anime while it's airing, then whenever you watch it, it's going to be hard to talk to anyone about it because it's not popular anymore. So I feel like that's probably why. Just because mainstream people like they'll flock to it. They're like, I remember distinctly, on r/overlord, it's like we get maybe 100, 200 posts a day, and most of them are like, oh, what did this mean in this one scene in this one thing? And then people from the light novel, well, actually, you got to see, Maruyama intended that this, it's actually me. I'm the one going,
Yeah,
well,
and then you got people
actually.
like you who've read the web novel too.
No, I haven't read Overlord's web novel.
Oh,
I've
you
only read the
haven't?
light novel. The
Only.
web novel is vastly inferior, so don't read that. Read the light novel, not the web novel. But uh, other than that, it's like the anime comes out, and then all of a sudden there's an influx of people like, oh, let's talk about the show, let's talk about the music, let's talk about the certain scenes surrounding this, and that's where the cohesion happens, where like people who have read the source material can be like, oh yeah, so here are some things that they did leave out. Here are some things for this, why this happens, this and that. But outside of that, it's like these are two spheres that they can't really interact because
Mhm.
I don't want to spoil the ending to Overlord for anyone. I want them to actually enjoy it, but also at the same time, I want them to know how much better it is and they should read it.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
It really is. Maybe that's why I appreciate anime originals so much, because there's not people doing that.
Because
Mhm.
we're all at the same level of understanding. No one can be like, oh, I know stuff. Like, no one has future knowledge.
Like the
Yeah.
last series I can remember, well, it was Bocchi the Rock, but that's not really a plot based. You're watching that for other reasons. You're not watching it for like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Wonder Egg is the last show I can remember where I remember like talking to people about theories and be like, oh, what do you think is gonna happen? Oh, do you like what's gonna? And obviously, the answer was nothing. Nothing is going to happen. But um, it really feels like it has to be a big anime original nowadays, or
To
else
do
if
like
it,
theory crafting and stuff.
yeah, like Attack on Titan worked with that through the towards the end of the final season because it was such a mainstay for such a long time and so many people hadn't read it. Specifically, like I didn't read it on purpose because I wanted to watch it. It just feels like nowadays it's just everything. Like when it's like I love this new season of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I basically couldn't talk to it with anybody I know because they all read, they're all caught up. And so it was just like, yeah, I can talk to you about it. Like people will be like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think about this?" And like people are very nice most of the time about like talking to you and whatever. But it's just so hard to talk to somebody that knows what's going, what happens. Because
Yeah.
then what you do is you mention something you think might happen, and then you like read their reaction to see like,
Huh. It's a very
interesting.
like, oh, that's what you think, huh? Oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to interact because of that, and because it's hard to interact with like Natai, for example, when I want to talk about something because it's like I know he hates spoilers. He doesn't want any spoilers for anything. That's why I talked to Alex instead because he doesn't give a shit about
I
spoilers.
don't give
So
a
I'm like,
shit.
oh, thank God I can talk about it.
Like the moment, literally the moment he read the final chapter of Attack on Titan, he's like, I gotta talk to you.
I had to talk to someone, and no one else was caught up yet. Okay,
man.
and I knew you didn't care about it, so I could talk to you. I could.
I mean, with
I
Attack on
had to,
Titan, it
like,
also helped
talk.
that I didn't give a shit about the story anyway.
Well, the thing is, I needed a sounding board where I need to process my emotions right now about reading this chapter.
I should have charged you like a nickel every minute for that therapy session.
But oh man, we've strayed so far from
we've
I was gonna
derailed
say
completely.
back to composers.
So Yuki Kadra,
Yeah.
Yuki Kadra is a composer that's worked on some really great soundtracks. Madoka Magica comes to mind. That soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. It's very ethereal. Like they use a lot of vocals in that soundtrack as well, and I think that really does it. Also has worked on Fate Zero, Sword Art Online, which is another anime we like to shit on. Why do we keep talking about these shitty anime,
Okay,
John?
I will say I don't know if SAO is in the same sphere of Guilty
like
Gear,
Guilty
Yeah.
Guilty Gear, Guilty
Guilty Gear.
Crown,
Whoa, whoa, yeah, whoa,
Norn
hold on now.
9,
Yeah, I don't think
Big
Big
Order.
Order.
I people can hate on SAO as much as they want, but I like the combat scenes. I think it's cool. I like the music. I like the animation. I just hate the story. The story
Yeah.
is dumb.
It's definitely the weakest of like some of the big shows they've done music for. It's probably my least favorite soundtrack. I remember like it. I think it fits the show, and it's not a bad soundtrack. But there was just no real standout songs aside from like
Right.
a couple of the battle songs that have like vocal, like a choir, have
Mhm.
like a choir in them. The only ones I distinctly remember. Like other than that, it just kind of felt like
That's kind of Yuki Kadra's
fantasy.
thing, though, using choirs
Yes.
and vocals in
Yes,
their music.
Like that's the Fate Zero songs that are the best. They're all
Yeah. Even
that as
in most recently with Demon Slayer, like
No, I love Demon Slayer's
there's
soundtrack.
vocals
It's so good.
in some of those tracks as well. But yeah, that seems to be Yuki Kadra's like kind of go-to thing with it, like incorporating vocals, especially in character themes.
Now I'm trying to remember the bands that worked on Madoka Magica as well. It was there was Claris.
Claris worked on the
and
OP, I think.
Yes,
and
Connect.
it's the oh my
Next.
god. There's a band that worked on Madoka and Fate Zero.
Is it Calafina?
Calafina,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Calafina. That was
Calafina.
the other. I was like,
Calafina.
it's another girl band.
That's the
But
one
Calafina
that ED is a
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I like Yuki Kadra's music. One of the things, probably the thing I liked the most about Fate Zero was the music, because it certainly wasn't the characters.
Every time I come on here, I learn that we disagree about significant portions of things that I enjoy.
Look, I gave Fate Zero a fair chance. I watched the whole thing. And I'm like, it's not bad. It's like a good 6 out of 10.
I'm not going to get started because I play Fake Grand Order, so I'm not going to drop this on you.
You're one,
this,
yeah, like
this,
one of
you're
those.
Get out of here.
One of those
Fate
fans.
I
haven't played the visual novel. I'm not that
okay.
I'm not in the.
See, we can see both of his hands. We know he doesn't play the visual novel.
I have not played the visual novel.
I thought Fate Zero's animation was great. The music's really good. I also didn't like the story of Fate, but
I mentioned it the last time we recorded where we talked about anime that surprises. Like, technically, it is a very well made anime. I just don't
now
like the story.
for Erased, I don't remember any of the music other than Asian Kung Fu Generations
Yeah,
re re
yeah,
re.
that was literally what I was going to say, was I don't remember any of the
Okay,
soundtrack, but Riri is
but re re
in my
re
top 5
like
on
dun
Spotify
dun
I
every
just
dun
want to
year.
point
dun
out
dun
I am
dun.
the exact same way, and the only reason I put it on here was because when Erased came out, it was the only thing we couldn't shut the fuck up about when this podcast first started.
Yeah, every freaking episode we started. So Erased was pretty good this week, guys.
That was like the first like meme that came out of our podcast. Like, so Erased is pretty good.
That's what I'm saying. I miss that era of like there being
Water
a show
cooler
every
anime.
season that everyone needed to talk about.
Yeah, water cooler anime.
And like I guess it still happens. Like I guess it's Freerun last season. I guess it's Freerun just like a different type of show. But it's just like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I'm probably the problem, but I don't
I
know.
know. I think that's not just a problem with anime either. I think that's a problem with like episodic or even serialized stuff these days. Because before, right? Before streaming was big, you had to watch it on TV. That was the only way you could see it. And so if you didn't watch it, you couldn't talk about it at all. And there was no like going back the day after it aired and like rewatching. You couldn't do it. And I think that streaming has kind of made it so that, you know, you never know where anyone is at on any particular series. Of course, they can be like me, where some series how I like to wait for them to end and then I binge them like I did with Jujutsu
Yeah,
Kaisen
binge
season 2.
culture is very big now for just consuming shows. I like to binge shows. I'm on and off of like binging shows. Sometimes I'll just only want to binge shows, so I'll wait till the end, like I did with Jujutsu Kaisen season 2.
Yeah.
And there's other shows where I'm just like, I gotta watch it every week, like Free Run. I gotta watch it every week.
And I mean, sometimes you might talk to someone about it and they may be watching it week to week, but they might be a two or 3 weeks behind, and then you can't
Mhm.
talk about the most recent episode. I think that streaming has a lot to do with that, which
I
I don't
think
know if there's a solution to that.
I I don't know. I mean, if you want to go find an anime community, you can look down below and join our Discord.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about airing anime on our Discord server all the time.
I do. You get live comments from me watching an episode.
You do. And then sometimes you get live comments of him berating Shinoda for suggesting something that turns out to be shit.
Listen, you can't suggest me a show and say it's good, and then if I find it's not good, expect to get away unscathed. It's just not how it works.
uh yeah, going back to Erase, like I really don't remember it. I just wanted to put it on here because it was the one thing when we first started talking, when we first started doing the podcast back at beginning of 2016, like we couldn't shut up about. And I remember the show, I remember the plot, I remember the OP. I don't remember anything about the music.
Mhm.
I remember going to read the manga right after I started watching the anime. So I called the ending, like who the killer was in episode, literally watching Riri the opening during episode 2. I'm like, I know who the killer is.
Is it because you read the manga? Or...
No, we were watching the anime, and all of a sudden, just listening to Riri, I just was like, all right, I'm just gonna do a little bit of detective work here and like who's the person who could possibly be the killer, and I was right. So then I went to go read the manga to confirm my theory, and I was right.
Yeah, he was
But
right.
I think that the manga ends slightly better than the anime does, mainly
Anime
because
is
there's more.
very abrupt.
Well, there's more closure in the manga, but it's not that different. Oh,
There's
well,
the cat
Yuzu.
back. Hello,
Yeah,
kitty.
it's not. I wouldn't say the anime ending is not that much different from the manga. And I honestly I cannot for the life of me remember any songs or any like stings or anything like that other than the opening.
Mhm.
But that's just because Asian Kung Fu Generation is a really good band.
But Demon Slayer's OST is really good.
Oh yeah, you can always remember that. Yeah, the freaking-
Yeah, it has one of my favorite stings in almost any show because I just like it's like sticks in your brain.
yeah.
The noise.
Yeah. Also that music that plays in episode 19 of season 1 is just
during the fire dance. Yeah,
that was what I was gonna bring up. Is that's like the song that everybody knows from that soundtrack as
that's
well.
like also that
because
scene is just
that
perfect.
episode is like the episode that made Demon Slayer like pop.
Yeah, nobody remembers that before that. The first core of that show, it was airing, and
People hated it.
and
Actually, they were like, "Oh,
well,
this is
just nobody
mid.
was
This
talking
sucks."
about it. It was like, oh, it's a Shonen Jump series,
Well, part of
Yeah,
that is
you
because
know,
freaking I don't remember the freaking Lightning Boy's name.
Zenitsu.
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 Yeah, because Zenitsu is just so his voice is so grating and his character is so annoying. And he kind of takes over for a couple of episodes while we're watching him. We're like, I don't really care about your flash sleep style, bro.
It's just so weird to think about a world where like Demon Slayer was airing and no one was talking about it.
I know.
It was just
Yeah.
so weird
And
that
now
that
every
was a
time
thing
a
that was
season
happening.
airs, it's all people talk about.
It's like now it's one of the biggest shows in the world. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable how that happens.
Yeah. Man, pre-COVID was a weird world, wasn't it?
I went to a convention in September or August of 2019, and there was one group of Demon Slayer cosplayers. One.
And that would
Right.
have been before the episode 19
It
aired.
was before 19, but it was while it was the second core arc. It was like the second core was starting soon. It had already been airing.
Yeah.
One
group. And now you go to conventions and like there's whole groups, like huge groups
it's
of Demon
Genshin and
Slayer.
Demon Slayer at
Yeah,
conventions now.
Genshin, Demon Slayer. Haikyuu used to be pretty popular,
Not
but
as much
Not
anymore.
as much anymore.
Not
Jujutsu
nearly as
Kaisen
much
is
anymore.
pretty popular cosplay now though.
Yeah, I imagine this year will be a lot of
Frieren?
Jujutsu stuff.
Freerin, probably.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think some Frieren.
I'm hoping with the resurgence of Spice and Wolf, we'll see more holos.
We can only hope.
I can only hope. All right, so we'll move on to another composer here. Shiro Sagisu, Evangelion. That's all I got to say. Like you know that music. You know it. You know that bombastic, over the top music in Evangelion.
See, I didn't know who did the soundtrack for Evangelion because I think it's good, yes, but I'm looking at the rest of this stuff and I'm like, Bleach. Oh, I recognize Bleach. That's a lot more recognizable to me.
No, his Bleach soundtrack is, I mean, just the like Ichigo's theme
Right.
is like such a standout song and so different than most other like anime to begin with, that it's like that in and of itself is worthy of being like mentioned in any conversation about composers.
Yeah, and he has come back to do the music for 1,000 Year Blood War as well, and I think the music in that is probably even better than the original Bleach soundtrack.
Whoa, I don't know about that, bro.
Yeah, there's a new mix of that theme that came out with that anime, and it's actually better than the original. And
I
I
think so too. I think so too. And he also came back to do the music for the Evangelion rebuild films as well. And also, I would be remiss. We're going to try and talk about every single Trigger show. He has worked on all the Gridman shows for Trigger too.
Gridman, Danny Xenon. Okay, check it off the list. We got
Yeah,
those
there you
two.
go.
Oh my god.
And did the music for the Gridman Universe movie.
I hate that it was a joke. It was literally a joke, but it's becoming reality.
And then to come back to our other bit for the episode, he did the music for Berserk 2016.
Oh my god.
So there we go.
We have two bits in this show. One, we have to mention every single Trigger anime, and two, we have to like bring up these composers are doing these wonderful
the worst
work
animes the composers have worked on.
for phenomenally bad anime.
I didn't hate Berserk 2016 as much as everyone else.
I understand.
I'm
the
not going
hatred
into
for
this
it.
conversation.
But John,
You
do
guys
do you understand why people didn't like it?
Because it's in 3D.
It looks like ass.
Yeah, it does look like ass. I agree. It was the same studio that did Fist of the North Star, I believe, too. The Fist of the North Star Blue Sky or whatever it was, the new one that they did.
Shitty remake.
The shitty remake that was just like god awful and shot at 12 frames a second for some reason. Like normally you animate it's 24 FPS, but nope, 12 for whatever reason. And it's in 3D. I'm like, oh, okay, sure.
I mean,
But
if you're gonna animate in 3D, you should want to animate in 24 frames per second because in 3D, your faults are going to be way more noticeable at lower frame rates.
yeah, you can't do like oh my god, what is it called when you can like when you're doing 2D and then you can like smudge stuff to make it like do- to overemphasize an action. I don't remember.
Smear.
Smear, sure. It's called
Motion
smearing.
blur.
You can, yeah. I don't. There's an actual word for it. I don't remember. I took animation and art and stuff, and I should know these, but I don't remember. I just make video games.
Why are you here if you don't remember all the stuff you learned?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Apparently,
The Bleach soundtrack is as much as I harp on. I do like the Evangelion soundtrack, but the Bleach soundtrack is probably what Sagasu is most famous for. At least what most people will probably recognize.
yeah. Apparently, he's also like I guess good friends with Hideaki Anno because he did the soundtrack for Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman
Yeah,
Oh.
over the last few years as well.
yeah.
So
He has also worked on a significant number of live action stuff too, not just anime. Um, I I guess we got to talk about Yoko Kanno, right?
we probably should
Okay.
have talked about her earlier. To be
Yeah, I know.
honest,
Like
in the top three, one
in
of the
top
first
Yeah.
three,
three.
like the
Yeah.
most recognizable composers, everyone's gonna know about Yoko Kanno,
I mean,
mainly
Cowboy
because of
Bebop.
Bebop. All right, let's be honest
3,
here.
2, 1. Let's
Let's
jam.
jam. I literally made the joke at the beginning of the episode. Uh, but I feel like Yoko Kanno, at least in our list, I've seen all four of these anime: Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, Kids on the Slope, and Terror and Resonance. I've seen all.
Specifically, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. She did not work on the original movie.
Yeah.
No, that was Kenji something.
I can't
I
remember
don't remember.
the music in that movie is also really really good. But Yoko Kanno did not work on the
I
soundtrack for
love
that
the
movie.
standalone complex soundtrack.
Yeah,
So
it's
like,
really
there's like
good.
a list of only a few shows on this list of like stuff I'll go out of my way to listen to the soundtrack in my own time, and that's on. It was like Attack on Titan, like Gurren Lagann, which we'll talk about a little later, and then like the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex soundtrack is like unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I'm with you though. Like that's something I would definitely go out of my way to listen to the music in that. Like it's phenomenal. It talking about a soundtrack that fits the story being told really really well. Like that soundtrack, every single track on that is just it fits the story that they're telling in that so well.
Yeah, like Terror and Resonance. I listen to Terror and Resonance, and I don't think Yoko Kanno. I think of the story because I'm just like I don't remember the soundtrack
No,
very
we
much.
we on this podcast we hear Terror and Resonance and we all think the same thing. You're kidding.
The bad English, oh god, and the whole edginess of the show too. But like with Bebop and Kids on the Slope, it's the jazz inspired and themed like soundtrack and design.
Mm.
But it's like, well, Kids on the Slope is quite literally about jazz.
Hmm.
It's about a guy who gets into jazz. Bebop, I feel like is what is that? Cyber noir, I think is the term for it. The genre that Bebop falls under.
That's a good. I've never heard that term before, but I love it.
Yeah, I believe you.
I think that's what the genre would technically be considered. Cyber
It is
noir.
like a noir film just with sci-fi elements.
Yeah, I think that's the term that we as a community who love Bebop have coined, I guess. I don't know. I could be making it up. Who knows? But
Maybe you've coined an entirely new genre.
well, with like noir, it's like you get it's a very, if you've ever seen a noir film or anything like that, it has that type of mood, right? It's very moody music and it fits very well. So Yoko Kanno, she does an amazing job making the soundtracks fit what she's making for. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's why I think she's so talented, and she honestly doesn't get as much credit, and she gets a lot of credit.
She gets a lot
But
of
I
credit
feel like
for like
it's the
Tank. That's
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, oh wow, I love Yoko Kanno.
I
It's like
love
I
Tank.
love Bebop's soundtrack, and I love all that jazz that she does. And it's like, yes, the Bebop soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks of all time. But I've heard a lot of people say that Terror and Resonance is actually her best soundtrack, which is, I don't have an opinion on that, but I do think like she's so good at making just like music. right? Like you could listen to Terror in Resonance and be like, oh, I wonder who this composer is, and then be like, oh, it was Yoko, or like the Standalone Complex one too. If I didn't know that, you listen to that soundtrack, because I think in a lot of people's minds, if you say Yoko Kanno, it's the bebop soundtrack, and if it doesn't sound like, it's kind of like the reverse of what we were talking about with Sawano.
With Sawano, yeah, like
Yeah,
where
where
you recognize, oh yeah,
you can,
that's Sawano
oh
right
yeah, you
there.
always know when it's a Sawano soundtrack, versus Yoko Kanno's fits the show so well and is so diverse that it's, you wouldn't know unless you looked it up who was doing the soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, moving on, we already talked about Kevin Bacon. Oh, Yugi Hayashi. Let's go.
Oh,
One of the only, the composer who composed one of the only anime soundtracks I actually own physically on a CD.
for your favorite anime of all time, My
For my
Hero
favorite
Academia.
anime of all time, My Hero Academia.
Yes.
Yes.
And to run with thieves, I don't like My Hero Academia.
I don't
Man,
really
do I
like the
love that
anime either.
soundtrack though. Holy crap.
Okay, My Hero Academia is good for two things. It's music
And it's porn.
and the porn.
Yeah. Bro, calm down. They're under 18.
I'm gonna see you guys later.
The more Ian interacts with us, the more he's like, man, I hate these ACAD guys.
Why do they keep inviting me?
Maybe I'm not coming back.
No, the My Hero Academia soundtrack is awesome though.
Yeah, I love it quite a lot.
And I will say, like YouTube says, You Say Run really does go with everything.
It's like he hacked music and
Yeah.
like the perfect like hype song. It's like unbelievable how that song is just like perfect, and it always works. And whenever they played it in the show, you're like, oh, okay, I don't even know what was going on anymore. I'm just like,
but I know I'm supposed to get hyped now.
let's go.
Yeah, I feel like that. So there's a lot of, because I don't watch like the newer seasons of MHA, but I know that I watch a lot of shorts that like remix songs that have MHA music, and whenever I hear it, I'm just like, I feel like this is MHA music. And I'll look it up and it's like, yep, that's MHA music, all right. Makes me feel like I'm getting hype. Like I'm watching the show and it's doing a really good job.
Like every new season has like a different mix of You Say Run a lot of the times, where he'll like slightly tweak it, and that's always really fun. There's like Jet, was it? I want to say it's Jet Set Run, but that might just be me combining Jet Set Radio and that song. So give me a second. It is Jet Set Run. It's Jet Set Run. I was correct.
I was gonna say it would be the first time people have like combined two completely different things on this podcast.
Yeah. I think it's funny that this entire idea for this episode, when you brought it up, Ian, was because of
the My Hero soundtrack specifically. I was like, oh man, you know, like You Say Run, and then there's the song. Oh my god, it's from the Stain arc. I'm gonna look it up in a second. Where it's like a normal song that plays, and then he added vocals to it for that specific scene with Endeavor, and it's so good. And I don't remember the name of the song, and it's really annoying me right now. So I'm in the act of trying to look up what the name of the song is.
He is becoming our Jamie. We should just have him on all the time as our Jamie in the background, just looking up stuff for us and fact checking everything we say.
I feel like that's a disrespect to Ian, because I like him being on in front, like I'm in the back.
I mean, he can still talk. I mean, Jamie talks on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, but we need a camera on Ian.
While you look that up, he has also done the soundtrack for Haikyuu, which does also have a really hype soundtrack.
Yeah, classic shonen. I liked Blood Lad to a certain point. I feel like the soundtrack is okay as well. I don't think it's that terrible of a soundtrack, but obviously My Hero Academia is probably his most famous work and will continue to be his most
recognizable.
It's kind of just like comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Like I know
I'm really curious if he's going to find out this information.
Yeah. I don't. I know that voice actors and actors in general can get typecasted into certain roles. Like they will do this thing forever. And I feel like with Hayashi, that's kind of how he is for
the hype shonen composer.
Yeah, that's like I do hype shonen music because, like, at least for these three, it's like these are hype shonen shows.
Mm-hmm.
and they will continue, and he will continue to be put onto hype shonen shows, which isn't a bad thing. I mean,
I mean, hey, if there's something I'd want to be known for, that wouldn't be so bad to be known for if I were a composer, because there's always new shonen coming out that need music.
yeah.
I,
So the
are you
issue here,
okay?
folks, yeah, I apparently misremembered when that arc was in. I thought it was season 3 for some reason. It's season 2. So now I found the season 2 OST. So now we're going to figure out
He's going real deep down the My Hero
where
Academia music rabbit hole.
it's just gonna. I'm gonna find it out like when we're done recording, and it's going to
I thought
really.
he was gonna
It's
say, I'm
going
just gonna
to.
buy it right now, and so I can have the whole soundtrack.
I can't figure it out. I don't recognize any of the
Well,
song names. So
moving
we'll
on
come
to
back to it.
moving on to someone who going from someone who's recognizable for doing hype shonen stuff to someone who has a huge range with their music, Kinsuke Ushio.
I need to look something up for Kensuke Ushio because I
Okay,
feel like if he's who I think he is,
Silent voice.
yeah. Worked on well, the three we have listed here specifically are Silent Voice, Chainsaw Man, and Devilman Crybaby. Three soundtracks that have very different feels to them.
There are some songs on the Chainsaw Man soundtrack that are the more downbeat songs that sound you can connect. I don't know if it's because I know it's him, but
Mm,
there are some of those songs you can connect. You're like, oh, I can hear like he uses like some chimes and stuff like
mm.
that. That's like it's like, oh,
I
this I can connect this to the
I
Silent
think
Voice
it's because
soundtrack.
because I've
I don't know.
obviously watched Chainsaw Man and and Silent Voice, or A Silent Voice. Uh, I never would have guessed that the two soundtracks were done by the same person in a million years.
Yeah, he
I
does a
think
good
you're doing a huge
job.
disservice to the man who did the music for Ping Pong the animation.
I mean, ping pong. Yet, listen,
That's
I
why he
brought
was
it
Because I
up
was
looking
like,
it up.
so
yeah,
many
that's
times
what
in
I
this
was thinking. I was like,
podcast.
isn't he the guy that did Ping Pong? I don't want to say it because I don't remember, but I was like, I feel like it is though, right?
So many times in this podcast because no one else has watched it. I have said it. The show, it's it's an acquired taste with its animation, but man, it's a good story and the music is really good.
It's Yuasa, right? Yuasa directed it.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, because I've heard nothing but good things about it too. So
Yeah, it is
No,
you
no one.
also.
I've never talked to anyone who's watched Ping Pong the animation, but it's so good. It's so good. No,
It's
Silent
ranked
Voice is
pretty highly
probably
though.
it is.
Freaking 8.62 on Mal. Holy crap.
Um, but going back to Ushio here, the soundtrack to A Silent Voice, I think as much as the I love the writing in A Silent Voice, I think the music really carries the emotions of that movie a lot. Especially towards the end.
yeah, that the soundtrack is that movie to me.
Mm,
So many of the things I remember from that film are specifically attached to the different songs. Also, if you've ever looked at the OST and also all of his stuff, I think he also has bizarre naming conventions for his music. To the
yeah.
point where if you don't remember, or I've had to go through the Silent Voice, like all the sound, I tried to soundtrack to find something, and just go through every song because there's literally no way to tell
So
unless you know what the song
Hmm.
is.
you know that famous piece of music at the end of Silent Voice that plays like that da, 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 that's literally just called Lit Var.
Yes, it's a
Lit bar.
variation of lit from earlier
Yeah.
in the. Oh, it's so frustrating that he names his songs like that.
Yeah. I don't know why did Japanese composers
Because the
do this?
Chainsaw Man soundtrack is like that too. I'm gonna pull it up. It's just like
I've never even looked at the titles of the music in the Chainsaw Man soundtrack. I just played the music. Is it
okay,
really
it's
done
not
in
as bad. It's not as bad. It's like Good Night Boy, Sweet Dreams is the one I was talking about when I feel like you can hear the connection between his
is
sound
that the
voice
piece of music that
work.
plays when at the beginning of the show where he's talking to Pochita?
I think so.
Okay. I
That's the
think I
one
know
where I
what
was
piece of
talking
music you're
about.
talking about then.
So no, I take what I said back. He did not name the Chainsaw Man ones like that. They just have they're all lowercase for some reason, but it is like special division for Edge of Chainsaw, The Door, and such. So he did actually name his Chainsaw Man tracks normal things.
Okay. Now,
In
what about
reference to,
Devilman
like,
Crybaby?
the he named the Chainsaw Man tracks in reference to, like, what the scene is. So to make
Yeah.
it easier for you to recognize, at least, like, when it says "The Door," because I've seen Chainsaw Man, I know what that soundtrack's gonna be for at what scene. It's
What about the
The Door.
Devilman Crybaby track? Crybaby.
No, I mean, of course.
I've never seen Devilman Crybaby. I know people like it, and I'm assuming this is the remake, right?
Yes, this is the
Yes.
one that came out in
I
2017?
want to, yeah,
18?
2017 or
18, I
18, one
think.
of those two. Um, yeah, the music in that is really awesome. That's another one that got memed to hell. One of the themes in there gets memed to hell all the time.
The opening theme that I believe I might, I don't think he might not have worked on it, but the opening theme of that is so good. Oh my
Mm.
god, I love it so much.
I'm telling John, we need to do another OP and ED one to have Gian on.
Oh I'm just gonna list off Clara songs now.
Okay.
Like, that's my opening and ending song episode. Just Claris makes really good music. I like Claris.
Uh,
I will fight anyone who thinks Claris's best song is an irony. I will literally fight you.
I'll jump right out of the screen and fight you right now.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed that on Ushio's work with the Chainsaw Man soundtrack. I think he captures it particularly well for what that series is going for at that point in the story.
Yeah.
And that's without me going on my rant about how I think the anime is good and everyone should stop complaining. But A Silent Voice is like his best work still. I think
I
stand by
still
that. I
think to
just
this
think
day,
that
I think that A Silent Voice might actually be my favorite anime movie ever. I think.
okay.
There's a lot of really, I mean, I really like the original Ghost in the Shell movie too. But I love A Silent Voice so much. I cannot recommend, and that's a movie I have no qualms about recommending to people who have never watched anime in their lives.
Well, because it's not just an anime movie. It's a movie about real life stuff.
It's not an anime movie, it's a movie that is an anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no like mystical bullshit that happens in it or
You don't have to
anything.
know anything about Japan or Japanese
No.
culture.
It's just
And
about
then
a girl and a guy
it's
who are
great.
struggling to communicate.
It's great for the boomers because literally within the first 5 minutes they get to hear the Who.
Oh, I forgot that's how that open. That's like how
It
it
starts
opens.
with
I think
My
that's like the
Generation.
first song. Yeah, that's like the first song in the movie.
Yeah. Which the first time I watched it shocked the hell out of me. It's like it's crazy. Like you get that opening like scene and then all of a sudden boom, it's the Who.
Mm-hmm. So my favorite anime film is Your Name, and
Okay.
much of that is because of the Radawimps soundtrack
Mm,
that has now become a staple of Shinkai's movies
work.
since Your Name.
Yeah.
So to keep on trend here with the whole man, let me talk about how Your Name is not that great.
I see Your Name for me is one of those movies that I've rewatched that movie both in English and in Japanese now because I do think the English dub was very well done. Um, I've rewatched it I think 7 or 8 times now, and
Okay.
each time I rewatch it, I find something new about it I don't like.
I
Why are
feel
you
like
still rewatching it then?
I don't know.
so
I
if
thought you
we
were
had
gonna
to
be like, I
rewatch
find
it,
something new. I'm like,
Like
yeah, I do
when I
too.
first no,
Every
so when
time
I
I watch
first
it, there's
watched
something
it,
I didn't catch the first time.
when I first watched it, like it was I immediately rated it 10 out of 10. It's down to like a 7 out of 10 for me now.
and the only reason he's rated it lower is because I keep talking to he keeps talking to me about it, and I start pointing everything out.
And I'm like, God, you're right.
Of course, I'm right.
Uh,
Don't get me wrong; it's a good film. Okay, the soundtrack is amazing, right?
Mm.
But I just feel like it's not Shinkai's best work. That's just how
No,
I feel.
I still think what was the
Five
one we
centimeters per
yeah,
second.
5 centimeters per
I was gonna
second is
say,
still
is
his
that
best
your
work. Which it's
It,
hard to think of that as a film. It's certainly not feature length. Um, but it is, I guess it's an hour long movie.
well, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the Your Name movie review, but the one scene that makes me cry in Your Name has nothing to do with the actual story, just something that resonated with me in my personal life. It's just like, that's cheap. The only reason I cried at this movie is because it made me think about my grandma. Fuck off. That's it. That's the only thing that actually made me feel emotion. But yeah, it's the soundtrack is amazing. I love Radwimps, the band.
And to be
They
fair, despite my issues with Shinkai's like latest films, I do still like the music in it, and I think that is probably just due to how good Radwimps are as a band.
Yeah.
of all of the composers that we have talked about or will talk about, this is the only one that I've seen live in concert.
Mm.
Oh my god.
And so
Okay.
that adds a little bit of an
Bias.
extra
A little bit of a
bias there.
bias. Yeah.
There's just something about seeing like Dream Lantern or Zen Zen Zen's live was just like unbelievable. It was like such a peak moment. But they definitely, to me, like I I was really high on Weathering with You when it came out, and then I've kind of gotten a much colder on it since. But the stuff that I do still go back to in that film is the music.
Mhm.
Like there's songs from that film that I really like. I don't even know if I want to compare it because I feel like I like the Your Name songs better, but that also might be because I like the movie better, right? You have more of an emotional connection to these songs because they're
Right.
from this movie you like instead of this movie you don't really like.
I mean, if you put a gun to my head and force me between like Your Name, Weathering with You, and Suzume to pick the best soundtrack, I'm gonna go with Your Name.
I still think so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Not that I've seen Weathering with You. I still haven't seen that one, but I did watch Suzume.
You
I like
watch that in
Suzume.
theaters.
It's all right. It was a little different.
There
He
weren't as
turns
many
himself into a chair,
songs.
Morty.
There weren't as many songs that I like that like jumped out to me with Suzume.
Yeah, other than Suzume,
Yeah,
the
other than the
titular
theme.
song.
Yeah.
Like I was waiting for there are still some good songs on it, but I was waiting for that big like the song. Like both of those other movies have like the song that you know.
Mhm.
Well, Your Name has a few, but it has like the big climactic vocal theme toward the end of for the end of the movie, the climax of the movie. And your Suzume just either didn't have one or didn't have one that I picked up on and remember. So I don't know.
I don't remember one either.
It was
The
probably
only
just Suzume again. They probably just played
It
the
probably was.
it's
Yeah.
just a
theme,
different, like, riff
I
of it,
guess.
yeah. I remember, listening to Suzume's soundtrack before the movie came out in America and being like, "Okay, fuck, the soundtrack's pretty good. I'll go
You
watch
can't
this
do
stupid."
that. You can't listen to the soundtrack before you watch it because it'll color your take on the show.
That might be why I didn't hate Suzume as much as I thought I would, even though when I saw the trailer and I was like, "Oh my god, he turns into a fucking chair, I can't."
Do you know why he did that? Do you guys have you guys read that interview of why he did that?
No.
So he wanted Suzume to be he's not super clear on it, a girl's love story
He
potentially.
wanted it to be a lesbian love
He
story, and they
wanted it
wouldn't
to
let him do
be
it.
the two main characters were two girls. How far that would have actually gone in the actual story he was writing is unclear. But because he said he also described it as like a sisterhood type of story, so I don't really know what he was going for there. But he didn't want it to be a traditional romance story because he said he was tired of doing that because he'd already done it with Your Name and then with Weathering with You again. And the producers were like, "No, you should do a boy meets girl story again because it makes bajillions of dollars." And so he did, but then as like kind of like a fuck you, he was like, "But then I turned him into a chair for most of the movie, so that there was no romance."
What? No, that's not real.
Yeah, it is. It
I
was in an
have
interview.
I have heard that story in like the original like pitch and draft of his story that he created. It was supposed to be like a lesbian love story.
Yeah, no,
I don't know
I didn't
about
know
that
anything
because the
about that.
exact quote from the interview is he wanted it to be like a girl story or a sister like a sisterhood type of story. And so
Yeah.
it's like I want to assume that he's talking about like making like a Yuri movie because I think that's really like would be really cool to see him do that. But it is not 100% clear from the interview that it was going to be like
Yeah, the
a
translation leaves a little bit
lesbian
open to
romance.
interpretation.
So I don't know, but at least it wasn't going to be the I don't even remember what his name was. Chair guy would not have been a. It would have been a another girl.
I can't remember and this maybe this is why I don't resonate with these last 3 movies as much now. If you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you the main characters' names in any of those 3 movies.
I can do your name. It's
I
Taiki
couldn't
and
even do it in your
Mitsuha.
name.
I couldn't do it
But
with any of Shinkai's films. I just I know main guy, main girl. They're the love interest. That's all I needed to know to understand the movie. I didn't need to know their names.
All right. Well, yeah, Radwimps are pretty good though. Also, like
they
in the
make
same vein, we haven't written this down, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't. In the same vein, though, the OST for Spy Family, being done by No Name, that's really good too.
yeah.
They should just become a jazz band. They
I was
really
going
just
to
should.
bring up your name, no
No
name,
name.
earlier when we were talking about like what we wanted to talk about, and
Mhm.
I just haven't seen enough of the shows. Like I haven't seen Doro, Hey Doro. I haven't seen like is it Soccer Request? Is that the name of that show?
I
They've
think
they've
so.
done a few of the other shows I haven't seen, so I didn't bring them up.
Sakura
But
something.
they are kind of like I was talking about Yoko Kano, like so unbelievably versatile. Where like none of their like that's the reason why I almost feel like they don't get enough credit because like so many of their soundtracks sound so different than from each other.
Hmm.
And like they did so many of those EDs for Dorohedoro that are like unbelievable. And they've done so many different soundtracks that are all like very distinctly different in different genres. And it just feels like they don't get as much credit as I think they should do for it.
I agree. And like, just bang up job with Spy Family. They got that like international intrigue / jazz sound down. It's like it's James Bond, but it's not James Bond. All right, let's move on to Taisei Iwasaki, Kekai Sensen, a show I haven't seen, but
Oh
everyone
my
keeps
god.
yelling at me to
How have
watch.
you not seen Kekai Sensen,
Oh
bro?
no,
I can't believe every time I hear that, it makes me like
cry.
I'm physically upset. Like my stomach hurts, bro. My pancreas hurts. My liver hurts. Like I can't believe this.
Does it make you as upset as watching me overwrite the same save file in every single game that I play?
No, this is on a
Oh
more
man.
visceral level, dude.
So
Like
you've never lost a save then? Is that what that tells me? Is you've never lost a save because you do
Not
that?
in many years.
Oh my god. But
listen,
Kekai Sensen is one of my favorite. I think it's in my top 5 as OSTs for
I
anime all
just love
time.
Kekai Sensen, the everything about Kekai Sensen. Like was it episode? Oh god, what episode? It's the burger dude with On My Own. That song, On My Own.
Oh man, I think it's 5, but
Episode 5 or 7 or what I
I'm
don't
just gonna look it
remember,
up.
but
I'm just gonna look
Yeah,
it up.
go look it up, Jamie.
was it I Shinomiya? Whatever is the singer, I believe, for that song.
I do know it's episode 6. Don't forget me is
Yeah.
the
Oh,
burger episode.
I love that episode. And everything about that, like just the theming and the music in that episode with On My Own. Oh, dude. I love it. Ah, visceral. I freaking wish Ty were here. Me and him could gush about Kekai Sensen.
One day I will sit down and watch Kekai Sensen. Today is not that day.
You
Well,
should do that, and then you should watch both of my videos about it on youtube.com/
Nice plug.
no,
Nice
you got to
plug.
finish the plug. Be More Brass, yeah.
It's on the screen.
At Be More Brass. What are you doing, dude? Where's the at? But anyway, yeah. I didn't know that Taisei Iwasaki did Bell or Metallic Rouge.
Yeah, I knew he was working on Metallic Rouge.
I like the music in Metallic Rouge right now. It's only been 2 episodes out right for now, so I obviously I haven't heard the entire soundtrack, so I can't say much. I did like Bell too, though. I'm like the most forgiving towards Bell because I like the music quite a lot.
It is a very good soundtrack.
I mean, if I'm judging it, I mentioned this in our movie review of Bell. If I were judging it solely on the music, I'd probably give it like an 8.5 out of 10.
I just wish Bell was a better movie about just the music and the girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
100%.
100%.
It's a shame that it's a shame that the B story in that movie exists.
It is such a shame. Oh my god. Oh fuck. Who's the director of Bell?
Hosoda.
Hosoda.
Mamoru
Hosoda.
Hosoda. Yeah. Forget Budget Shinkai.
Yeah, but it's just Shinkai with a different art style.
It's just
No,
Budget
it's
Shinkai.
he's the furry director.
Oh no, that's
We
right.
talked
He's the
about this.
third one.
We
We've
literally
talked.
said that. That's right.
He is a secret furry.
He's a secret.
Amuro
I
Soda
don't think
is
it's a secret.
furry.
I mean, yeah,
I
the
mean, he
writing's
made
on
I
the
mean,
wall,
he
dude.
made
Boy and the
Wolf
Beast,
and
Belle,
then
Wolf
Wolf
Children,
Children.
yeah.
Wolf Children. Like I mentioned it in Wolf Children. She does not hesitate at all to take that wolf dick.
It's just like because Summer Wars and Boy and the Beast certainly, but like Wolf Children is the one where I'm like, okay, man, like
Okay,
I know what
okay,
you're doing.
Hosoda, I see where you're at.
I got you. I got you.
Because there are already so many characters in Belle that like their virtual avatars are animals too. And I just think that's really funny.
I just
Man,
think people like to be cute animal, like animal human hybrids. I don't think it makes you necessarily a furry.
But the body of work is there, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not saying that our mascot is a cat girl, but
Anyway, yeah. I think that everyone out there should watch Kekai Sensen because that is one of my like top 10 anime of all
I
time,
agree.
and that it's bolstered by the soundtrack.
Maybe we'll get a
Definitely
season 3 one day.
one
Maybe.
day.
I mean, hell, I mean, we're getting a remake of Spice and Wolf. Anything is possible.
All I ask is that they make the manga easy. Like you can't read it legally anywhere.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. The internet was supposed to free us, not trap us.
Well, I just don't understand how it's like it feels like it's popular enough. Someone should license it, please.
Yes.
Yen Press, if you're listening to this podcast, please license the Kekai Sensen manga.
Yes, please. Please license all the manga. Actually, Yen Press does a good job with their manga.
I'm trying to think of like I was gonna say Seven Seas, but I'm like, no, Seven Seas is more like isekai. They care a lot more about isekai than anything else. But
Vertical could probably do it. They did a great job with the Monogatari light novels.
no,
I mean, if Viz wants to do it, I don't care. Just somebody
someone
do it.
license this.
Somebody.
Buy it. I need it.
I will let me take my money, please.
Don't you just hate that when you want to give someone money and they're just like refusing to let you give them money? Like, ah,
Yes.
It's in like SQ. It's in Jump Square. That's why it's in Jump Square. And so I'm like, okay, it's Shonen Jump or like it's Jump.
It's a Jump property.
It's Shueisha. And all of your other manga are all always on your app. Why is this not there? I don't understand. Please.
Maybe they had a falling out with the creator.
But he's still rating it.
yeah.
I don't know, man.
out at Jump Square.
I don't know.
Guys,
maybe
promote your series.
Maybe the creator only wants it in physical form and doesn't want it translated. I don't know.
Anyway, let's talk about another Iwasaki.
Yeah. Let's talk about this. Yeah, no relation. I don't think.
Not that I could find.
But yeah, Taku Iwasaki. It's not a Trigger property, but
Gurren Lagann's a Trigger show. I don't care.
It's
Trigger. We all know it's Trigger.
They own the rights to it now, so yeah, it is a Trigger property.
There you go.
They bought the copyright to it.
Did they?
Yeah, because Gainax doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, they bought the copyright to that and Panty and Stocking. It's why they're making a new season of Panty and Stocking.
I just love that story of Panty and Stocking. Like they just got pissed drunk after making it was Ava, right?
Yeah,
they were finished with the I don't remember which one it was, but they were getting drunk after like, yeah, Ava, we're done, and then they're like, you know what would be fucking hilarious?
I wonder how many anime have come out of that. Like just people
More than
getting
zero.
drunk or high.
More than zero.
It's at least one. But yeah, Gurren Lagann soundtrack I think is pretty iconic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's right. Row, fight the power.
The entire reason I added Taku Iwasaki to this list was because of Gurren Lagann mostly, and also JoJo's Part 2 is a soundtrack I enjoy as well. But exactly right. The Gurren Lagann soundtrack is just like oh my god. There are so many songs from that I just listen to all the time. Whether or not it's like some of the insert songs, like "Happily Ever After," or
do you know if I didn't know better, and if I didn't already know, you could actually convince me that Gurren Lagann's OST was composed by Hiroyuki Sawano. That's how good it is.
It doesn't have like that big drop song though. That's the
No,
thing.
but
Like
what
the
it does
victory.
have is great character themes
Yes,
Yeah.
that
it
Sawano
does.
is really great at writing.
Just like the Kill la Kill. It's funny how similar those soundtracks are at points, given that they're by different people.
Yeah.
The character themes are s- they're so good. The victory song, which is Happily Ever After, is
Mm.
very, very good. I've never remembered it. Like it's like Libera Me from Hell is the row
Libera
to
Me
row
from
row
Hell.
row 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 fight the power song. That song's incredible. See, these both soundtracks even have like the song with the kind of goofy English rapping in it,
Yeah.
and they're by different people. It's so crazy.
That's why I say, like, I look at that, I look at the Kill la Kill, I was like, I could be convinced that this was a
I
Hiroyuki
wonder.
Sawano soundtrack.
Well, I wonder if Trigger had anything to do with that, where they're just like, all right, this is the sound design we're thinking of.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
as the creator of your show, you're gonna tell the producer, the sound producer, composer, you're like, hey, this is the theme we're going for. This is the thing. Have you seen Gurren Lagann? We're doing that for Kill la Kill.
Have you seen Gurren Lagann?
I mean, I don't know how much this plays into it, but both of those are also anime originals. Both Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill are anime
Oh,
originals. So I mean,
Probably
there's
helps.
no pre-established story to have like a set idea of what you want your soundtrack to be.
now I only know Taku Iwasaki for Noragami soundtrack because I didn't like Noragami that much. I know that people love Noragami, and I'm
I
like,
like it.
okay, yeah, a lot of people do like it. I thought the soundtrack was great.
The manga just ended.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. To me, I was just like, I was watching it because everyone else was saying, "Oh, it's so good," and I'm like watching. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's it's like it's okay.
I
But
like it.
yeah, and
I
I
like my
obviously
sad
didn't
demigod.
I didn't know that they did Soul Eater either, and I've never seen Bungo Stray Dogs, so we're just
Bungo,
gonna
listen, Bungo Stray Dogs is number one. It's a damn good anime. Go watch it.
yeah.
Number
You and Japan all agree. That's why it's on season like 5 or something.
It's
6.
also.
Oh, on
Did you guys
6, my bad.
see the AO3, the 2023 AO3 top ships of the year post?
No.
No.
Dazai Chuya is number 3 in the
Really?
entire world. All fandoms. Dazai Chuya has the third had the third most
That's
fics
crazy.
written about them
Wait, from
in
last year
2020.
you said?
Yes,
That's crazy. Man, fucking
it's
fanfic writers are insane.
it's wild.
John, your wife is insane.
Listen, all I know from what you just said was I know AO3 is a fanfic website, and that's it. I don't know what character you're referring to. I'm assuming it's Bungo Stray Dogs.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, I know that Bungo Stray Dogs is very popular. Uh I still haven't watched it. I was
That's another
planning to
one of
watch
those that
season 1. I've seen like I think I've seen the first episode or something, but I just don't care.
it's another it's an anime where every time I try and talk to the people about it and I as I have you seen it's like no. It's like god damn it. How is this so popular and no one I can talk to has seen it?
Well, it's popular in Japan. Like mega
Yeah,
popular in
it's I
Japan.
don't think it's anywhere near as popular as it is in the West. Although, like, judging by how much porn is written of it, I must be wrong. That's our metric. Like the more porn that's written or drawn of something, it's how popular it is.
We had that discussion earlier too.
Yes.
But I mean, is there anything else you guys want to talk about for Gurren Lagann and JoJo's
I
Noragami?
mean,
Anything like that?
JoJo's the part 2 soundtrack is pretty iconic, especially for the Pillar Man theme.
That and I
Yeah,
love
I mean, everyone knows
Joseph's
about the
theme
Aztec
too.
dubstep, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
and Joseph's theme is pretty much a banger too.
but I'm biased. I part 2 is just my personal favorite part because I love Joseph the character.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean,
Overdrive is
yeah.
I also
that
just
song.
love
I love that song.
Sugita. Just
I also like how
I love
in
Sugita so much.
I love in part 2 how they reworked Speedwagon's like little musical motif from part 1 and made it more upbeat in part 2. Cuz he's like such an over the top character. I mean, he's kind of over the top in part 1 as well, but he's really over the top in part 2. But yeah, I love both of those soundtracks and I think Iwasaki kind of hit it on the nail with both of those.
He's so prolific that I only had a few listed there, but he's worked on like 30 or 40 different shows. I
Oh
know
my
you
lord.
mentioned like irregular at Magic High School
Oh
or
yeah, they
the
regular
that
at Magic
shows.
High.
There was just it was probably one of the longest lists of shows that I saw, specifically at TV anime, because a lot of people do TV anime, they do movies, they do live
Live
action stuff,
action.
they do some other stuff, some video games, and so that was just impressive looking at him.
Yeah. So do we want to end this off? Because we've been going for a while now. Do you want to end this off with maybe talking about a couple of specific OSTs, not necessarily the composers themselves?
Yeah, because I I thought originally this episode was gonna be about OSTs, like what OSTs we liked, right? Because I believe that's what me and Natai originally came up with. Like, let's just talk about anime OSTs.
Hmm.
Because I personally wanted to talk about Overlord. I love Overlord's OST. The anime is whatever; it's mediocre at best. The light novel is amazing, but
You should
the
definitely read the light novel.
you should definitely read the light novel and also
Read the
listen
light
to the
novel while listening to the music.
dude. The music is so good. Oh my god! Like the guy who does this, I didn't write down their name, but this is kind of like their only well-known work, so that's why I was like, I can't really mention them in the this is a good composer because it's like, well, you have one good anime
One hit
story.
wonder.
Yeah. He's really good for that. No shade to the rest of the shows that he's done work on, but I absolutely fucking love Overlord. Everything about it, you listen to it and it's like it's impactful, it's fantastical because Overlord is an isekai and it's about like power creep and shit like that. And this guy who's like he's the Overlord, he's mega strong, and the soundtrack reflects that. Like the King's Procession, and I believe it's season 2. I think it's season 2, but there's a certain scene where it's called the King's Procession because they roll out the red carpet and the king ascends to the throne, and it's just like the soundtrack going off. It's like fucking nuts. You're like, oh fuck.
The composer's name is Shuji Katayama, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
Also worked on Saga of Tanya the Evil.
oh yeah, also Tanya the Evil. That's all I had to say about Overlord. Just like don't watch the anime because it's bad, but
And speaking of anime that are shitty, he also worked on the soundtrack for Super Lovers.
yeah.
Ooh.
The Canadian anime.
The Canadian anime, yes.
And Closer Than Brothers. But
So I wanted to complete our bit here about Trigger, and I just realized that Yuki Hayashi did Kisniver's soundtrack.
Oh, nice. That actually
So
fills 2 bits at the same time.
there we go.
my most hated Trigger anime.
And then
Do you want to just bring up who did the soundtrack for Darling in the Franxx and
so that
was
was
it
the only one
BNA?
I didn't pull up because I don't remember that soundtrack. I actually quite like BNA's soundtrack.
I do too.
BNA's soundtrack was I'm gonna butcher his name. It's Mabanua,
Okay.
who also did the Megalobox soundtrack.
Oh,
Oh,
Megalobox is a phenomenal
Yeah.
OST.
So that's why the BNA soundtrack is as good as it is.
BNA is kind of like a whatever anime. It's like a 6.5, 7 out of 10, but I do like the music in it a lot.
I just wish they would use more than I wish they stopped using the ED song all the damn time. Don't get me wrong. It's a
ED
good
song,
ED
though.
song, but
It's
they
a great
insert
ED.
it so many times into the freaking anime. And Alex strategically made sure I wasn't there to rip on BNA.
I genuinely made sure he wasn't available when we did our spoiler cast for BNA.
He didn't want me to rip into Trigger any more than I already do because I love Trigger, but also I fucking hate Trigger.
And then Little Witch Academia is Michiru Oshima, who worked on like Full Metal 03 and a whole bunch of other stuff Tatami Galaxy and a lot of other stuff that I do not recognize. Ride Your Wave a few years ago.
That was actually pretty good.
And actually, she's working on the soundtrack for Buchigiri right now this season.
No,
didn't know that until right now.
And Pantheon Stalking, I believe the composer for that was Teddy Lloyd, right? He did
At least
Teddy
some of the
Lloyd did a lot
music.
of the music,
Yeah.
yes.
I love that album too. I remember downloading it. Like I love the strip club music when they
Fly
transform.
away now.
Yeah, like oh
Fly
yeah,
away.
yeah.
And then I actually talked about this earlier before we were recording, but the Delicious in Dungeon, the Dungeon Meshi soundtrack this season is by Yatsunori Mitsuda, who did the soundtrack for Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana and like so many famous JRPGs over the
Okay.
years. And they got him to do the soundtrack for Dungeon Meshi this season, which
That's
leaves
pretty
us
cool.
with
Yeah. There's
Space
Space Patrol
Patrol
Luluco
Luluco, which I don't know. I
and
didn't look that one up.
And Darling in the
a-
Franxx.
Okay, I'll look up Darling in the Franxx for you at the very least.
an Infernal Cop.
And Inferno Cop. But I mean, really. Does anyone watch Inferno Cop for the music?
Did anyone
No.
watch Inferno Cop?
Yes.
No.
I love Inferno
Whoa.
Cop.
I don't think anyone knows what Inferno Cop is anymore, Alex.
I know. It's a shame because it's funny. Space Patrol Luluco was funny too.
I like Space Patrol
I love the
Luluco.
fact that that Trigger used Space Patrol Luluco's ending to advertise that they were making a Little Witch Academia show. Like literally the ending of that is the main character Luluco coming up against the main character of Little Witch Academia. It's great.
So the Darling in the Franxx composer is Asami Tachibana, who appears to work very closely with Yuki Hayashi
Okay.
because she's done all the Haikyuu soundtracks with him,
Hmm.
as well as some other shows like Robotics Note
Oh god.
and Gundam Build Fighters Try, baby. Let's
Oh,
go.
Gundam Build Fighters. Oh yeah.
All right.
But not a ton else on here other than Attack on Titan Junior High. If you were really hankering to know who did the soundtrack for that.
Oh yeah.
That was a thing, remember, John?
I thought it was pretty well received, wasn't it? Attack
Yeah,
on
people
Titan
because
Junior
there was no
High.
season 2, so everyone was just like,
Oh, more
any
Attack on Titan.
Attack on
Gobble this
Titan
shit up.
content.
Oh, okay. No, I thought it was just like a funny spin-off series of like a what
Yeah.
if they were in
It kind of
school.
is.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be taken seriously.
I mean, I've never seen it, but sure, it's fine. People can have fun
John,
things.
can we talk about the Magical Destroyers OST though?
Yeah, go do that.
Yeah. The
'Cause it's
Magical
really good.
Destroyers is very well documented to be the most anime of all time.
It is an anime.
People
of
hate
all
it.
time.
Barely anyone loves it, but a lot of people hate it, and a lot of people think it's all right. So it's like, take what you will from that. I personally like Magical Destroyers. I know why people hate it, and I think, well, that's dumb. But holy crap, man, that music! Like,
I think a lot of people just didn't like it because of the ending. I feel like that's a lot of it.
I get it, and also I get like some people just there's right ways to do meta commentary and wrong ways to do meta commentary. Gintama is an example of like an anime that's about pop culture and meta commentary. It's the South Park of I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Gintama is the South Park of anime. You may not like that I say that, but I am right. Now, I think that Magical Destroyers does a really good job at being a meta commentary, and I like meta shows. But I think that there is a overarching message that is being told to you about the indomitable spirit of weebs, and it follows through with that. It did not ever cheat itself from that. On top of that, the soundtrack itself is great. I love the opening song because it starts off and you're like, oh, it's kind of okay, and then it just goes fucking nuts. You're like, dude, I'm on a fucking acid trip. What the hell is going on?
I feel like drugs were definitely involved in making Magical Destroyers.
There's quite literally a tweaker chick in the show,
and she's the best girl.
Yeah, Florida girl. And the ED was also super cool. I loved it. Oh my god, what was it called? It's a weird fucking name for a song, but it's in English. It's by a Japanese group that sings in English, and it's like decent English.
That's always a risky business right there. I forget the name of the ED too.
I don't remember the name of the OP, but I just know that I know what they.
I know there's a cat in it.
But there's also I remember one of the first things I did was like post the OP and ED to you guys and be like, you guys should probably watch the show. It's got a good OP and ED. And I do know that I'm a sucker for OPs and EDs, and I will watch trash shows that have good OPs and EDs.
Yeah, he won't go listen to the OPs and EDs. He'll watch the
Watch the
episodes as they
show.
come
Yep,
out
normal
just for the
normal
OPs
behavior.
and EDs.
Completely normal behavior.
It's completely sane behavior.
This dude has Spotify Premium with the anime like OPs and EDs probably on there. It's like, nah, I'll watch this shitty show.
Listen, because every time you listen to the OP and ED, it just makes the brain forget, you know, how bad the show is. You'll forget how bad it is going in, and then you'll forget it was bad going out, baby. It's all good.
Garbage in, garbage out.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know who did the soundtrack for Match Will Destroyers. I didn't write it down. I was supposed to, and I just forgot, I guess.
Good job.
Listen. This was like, I just wanted to mention just these specific shows and their OSTs because they may not be good shows, but they're good OSTs at least. So go check them out.
Let's see. Gin Hashiba.
Gintama?
Yeah, Gintama. Gintama did the actual music.
And then like I wrote down the Persona OSTs like Shoji Meguro, just super popular. Everyone Persona's gotten so goddamn popular.
Yeah, like that's a video game though. Like,
I
know there are anime.
They have anime, bro. I'm gonna get it has anime.
The same person did the composing for the anime though, right?
Mm-hmm. Shoji Meguro's music
because they just used the music from the game.
Yeah, because they already had music. They just used the anime.
Listen, they did the same thing in Nier.
So I
didn't put Nier.
No, but it's a fucking phenomenal soundtrack.
I just again honorable mention, but I didn't know. I kind of didn't want to add this as well because it's like, well, everybody and their mom knows about Shoji Meguro and his soundtracks. Like everyone in fucking Persona 5 fucking popped off, man. Like Persona was okay popular prior to Persona 5. Like Persona 3 and Persona 4 definitely have their own cult following of people who like it. Like me, I love Persona 4. Like Natai, he loves Persona 3. And then Persona 5 just like put Persona on the freaking map, and everyone listens to like the you never see it coming.
Yeah,
like everyone and their mom.
It felt like FES was the first time it like came into my view, and then Golden was the first time I was like, oh, people I know are playing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 was the like, oh, it's popular, and then Royal was like, oh, it's like one of the most popular games out right now. Very interesting.
Yeah, I played Persona 3 first, and it's the best Persona game.
Why does no one ever talk about the first 2 Persona games?
Because they're like impossible to play without emulation.
Yeah,
or like a PSP.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, makes sense.
But I personally think Golden was my favorite, just because I was a lot happier, and I felt a lot better playing it than I did Persona 3. Persona 3 just makes me sad.
I want to play Persona 1. I want to be the guy that starts at Persona 1. That's my plan.
Okay.
I will say, like, I've never played Persona. I have no like horse in this race, but everyone always tells me it really doesn't matter which game you start with because they're all kind of self-contained.
Yeah, they're all self-contained. They have nods to each other. Like in Persona 4 Golden, for example, you go to the school and you'll meet some characters from Persona 3. And you're like, oh, look at that. You can get the school outfit from Persona 3 and Persona 4, guys. Like that, yeah.
But I mean, if it's your first time playing, you're not really going to care anyway.
No.
All right, well, that's everything on our list. I cannot believe we actually talked about everything on this list. It was a long list.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd be here for over 2 hours doing this.
I know. Why is it every time we have Ian on, it's a long recording?
Yeah, every time I'm on, it gets dark out recording.
Well, what's funny is it started light out before we even started the episode, and then it just got progressively darker, and we started in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't have my light, my desk light here, it would be you wouldn't be able to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a good thing we could see you. And thank you for joining us again, Ian.
Yeah, always fun to have you, man.
Yeah. If we do another OP and ED episode, we'll definitely have you on.
I really need to come on an episode where we could just talk about whatever.
Yeah, we
right?
need
One
to
of
have you on
those.
one of our WTFs, and we
Because
do
we
those
we
once a
do
month.
that anyway. Like half this episode is us talking about not
Yeah.
soundtracks.
But yeah,
So-
the next time we do a WTF is actually next Saturday, but I think I already talked to you about that and you said you're busy.
Yeah, pretty much through the end of through the beginning of March, I'm moving, so I kind of have not a ton of time to do stuff.
Hell, maybe toward the end of March, beginning of April, we could have you on. We tend to do our WTFs toward the end of the month. So maybe I might have to wait till maybe the end of April.
We'll see. Whatever. You know where to find me.
Yeah. Speaking of which, for those of you who may be seeing you for the first time, where can they find your content? Because you make anime-centric content on your own YouTube channel.
YouTube.com/BeMoreBrass. And then also just Twitter at BeMoreBrass as well. It's and I have a Twitch too, but don't use it that much. But basically it's unique enough of a username that I am the only person that has any sort of it together. There actually is a brass band in Baltimore that are like Be More Brass something something something, but it's not spelled the same. So if you put in that, I'm putting it to screen. If you put in Be More Brass in, all of my things will come up.
All right. And go Ravens, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, when the time this comes out, they'll have.
But this is actually going to come out the first week of February, so
yeah. Hopefully, they're playing in the Super Bowl by the time this comes out.
It may be irrelevant by then, but who knows? All right. Well, thank you everyone who stopped by to watch us tonight. Check down below where you can find links to Anime Club After Dark on Twitter, on Discord. Join our Discord server if you actually do want to talk about anime as they're airing, because John will talk to you about everything because he's watching everything.
Shinoda will too.
Yeah, Shinoda watches more anime than you do now.
He watches way more anime than I do.
Like the dude's literally watching, I think, 15 or 16 anime this season.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
well,
no,
he has no life.
I keep it at like 10 or less, or 12 or less.
I keep it under a dozen. Also, if you liked what you saw and want to see more, do please like, comment, subscribe down below. Tell us what some of your favorite anime OSTs are as well. We'd love to hear from them. Also, check down below where you can find a link to Anime Club After Dark's merch store, where you can buy nice shirts like this. Haha.
Cool story, bro.
Or our Tumblr with our mascot on it. It really does help us out. But with that, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night. Bye.